Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. I'm the Aquaman in Marvel, the check-in system is bound. Chapter 61. Wow. While the sea surface was churning, the water waves surged, and the Aral Sea, which was sunk by Han Shaoqing's gravity, slowly surfaced under the push of the sea water. Han Shaoqing and the red tank stood at the bow of the ship, and under the control of Han Shaoqing's gravity, the 4 Tsar bombs on board were suspended. The Tsar bomb is also named AN-602. With a total length of 8 meters, a total diameter of 2 meters, and a total weight of 27 tons. It is a hydrogen bomb manufactured by the Soviet Union during the Cold War. It was tested on Novaya Zemlya in 1961. It is the bomb with the largest volume, weight and power among all types of bombs detonated by human beings. The explosive equivalent is equivalent to 170 million tons of TNT explosives. To have a deterrent effect, the Tsar bomb is the most intuitive. After vacating the Chenkin Ring, Han Shaoqing put the 4 Tsar bombs into the Chenkin Ring, and then rowed the boat without relying on oars, but relying on the waves to push the boat to the island and dock. It's the red tank. Namor didn't come up. Was he killed, or ran away? The Red Devil changed his mind and continued to wait and see, occasionally thinking about Mystique beside him from the corner of his eyes, what was brewing in his heart. I got the nuclear bomb on the ship. Mystique, you take the professor and the siren to Shangjiang to take refuge first, and I will come over to join you after I finish dealing with Magneto and the Red Devil. When Mora heard the words, she was terrified. Do you want to detonate a nuclear bomb in Washington? When did I say I was going to detonate a nuclear bomb? Don't slander. This Tsar bomb is for deterrence. Of course, if necessary, I don't mind having a beautiful scenery in Washington. You should know that people are pushed and can do anything. Han Shaoqing's words were mixed, and he wanted to convey them to those in power through Mora, so that the other party would be afraid. As for detonating a nuclear bomb, stop making trouble. Han Shaoqing is a peace-loving person. The personnel were divided into 2 groups. Ruiwen teleported away with the unconscious Charles, Sean, Darwin, Artoria, Alex, Salvador and Genos, and headed for Shangjiang. Han Shaoqing called Eric, the Red Tank, the White Queen, Black Adam and the saber-toothed tiger together, and under the teleportation of the Red Devil several times, they came to the Parliament Hall of the Pentagon. At this time, the hall was full of noise, and all the warships on the front line lost contact, and I thought with my toes that there must be an accident. In this era, satellites have not yet been launched into the sky, and communications are relatively backward. Senior officials in the Pentagon are worried. In the center of the conference hall, the sudden appearance of Han Shaoqing and others caused a commotion. It's a mutant. Guards, how did they get here in such a short time? The already noisy conference room became more and more chaotic. Someone was looking for cover, someone was drawing a gun, someone was screaming. Old Wan, hand over their guns. When Han Shaoqing spoke, Eric controlled the magnetic field, photographed all the guns around the conference room into the air, and aimed them at the people around him. A few super brave special forces rushed over and wanted to fight hand to hand. The saber-toothed tiger, the Red Devil and the Red Tank stepped out, punching a child, and quickly controlled the situation in the hall. Han Shaoqing looked at the White Queen beside him. You feel it, those people made the decision. The White Queen shook her head slightly. There is electromagnetic field interference here, and I can't sense it. Since Charles exposed the ability of telepathy, some high-level officials in the United States were afraid that their secrets would be exposed, so they asked their staff to work overtime to manufacture a few machines that specifically restrained telepathy and placed them in important departments. Psychic disturbance device. Eric sensed it, and soon found the device, looking at Han Shaoqing. Do you want to destroy it? Han Shaoqing smiled and said, keep it, take it back, you don't want to wear a helmet all day, do you? Makes sense. No one likes to be eavesdropped on by others. Neither Charles nor Emma the White Queen is easy to use. Telepathy can not only view other people's memories at will, but also control other people's bodies, and even modify their memories. It's very weird. We'll be recruited. Eric and Charles had a good relationship, but they didn't like it when someone knew what they were thinking all the time. Under Eric's operation, the power of the mind-disturbing device was cut off, and then flew from downstairs to the meeting room along the aisle. As for whether it will disturb the guards, who cares? Sometimes you can really do whatever you want. As far as the combination of Han Xiaoqing and the others is concerned, even if the future Avengers come, it may not be very useful. Without the mind-disturbing device, the White Queen could easily read the minds of those around her. In fact, Han Xiaoqing can use the blue hand of Shuangquan hands to read other people's memories, but when it is not necessary, Han Xiaoqing seldom uses it in front of others. He doesn't need to do anything that his subordinates can do. Soon the White Queen reported a list to Han Xiaoqing, most of whom Han Xiaoqing had never heard of, but one was an acquaintance. Howard Stark. Howard Stark is an accomplished scientist, ruthless businessman and founder of Stark Industries. This kid has been smart since he was a child, known as a mechanical prodigy, constantly creating new technologies and looking for various ways to improve. The weapons and equipment he designed have revolutionized the world of industrial equipment. As a young man, Howard was involved in various government projects in both World War I and World War II, such as creating Captain America's shield during World War II. The biggest achievement is being Iron Man's father. He is also a celebrity, so he should meet the check-in requirements. With a thought, Han Xiaoqing hooked his fingers, and Howard flew in front of Han Xiaoqing involuntarily, and was trampled under his feet. Ding! The host is currently on top of Howard Stark, and meets the check-in conditions. Do you want to check in? Hearing the system prompt, Han Xiaoqing silently said, punch in. Punching in, counting down for 10 seconds, 10, 3, 2, 1, punching in successfully. Congratulations to the host for getting Lex Luthor from 600th World. Lex Luthor, also known as Alexander Luthor, is one of the smartest people on Earth, possessing level 9 intelligence, a business tycoon, philanthropist, inventor, and politician, who likes to use strategic thinking to gain benefits, rights, status. Do you want to receive it? Another DC character. Han Xiaoqing wondered, if this continues, will he gather DC's Justice League and supervillains together that day? It is not suitable to receive rewards right now. Han Xiaoqing looked at the others, and said, because of your wrong decision, nearly 6,000 people died. They all died because of your orders. Peace is hard-won, but you always want to challenge, start a war, satisfy your own selfish desires by hurting others. You are the most people. Now I will give you a chance to live. There were 16 people on the island at that time, and 23 of you here voted for it. One life is worth one life. Within 3 minutes, 8 of you will die, and the others will live. Quote, if after 3 minutes, the number of people exceeds 15, I will randomly shoot the extra people until there are 15 people left, and the countdown begins. At the end, Han Xiaoqing threw a few knives and remained on the ground, then took out his watch and started timing. In 3 minutes, only 15 of the 23 people can survive. This is Han Xiaoqing's choice for these powerful people. Everyone who can vote in the Pentagon's conference hall is an influential figure in the United States, and their words and deeds can determine the fate of many people. It even almost started World War III. If it weren't for Han Xiaoqing and others to stop it, then the nuclear war would inevitably start, and the number of people who would die by then would be more than 6,000. It is no exaggeration to say that they deserve death. Don't go too far. Want us to kill each other, dreaming. Hey, I shouldn't have agreed in the first place. Those who have always been in power are now controlled by a Chinese youth, which makes them feel humiliated, angry, regretful and helpless. Don't move around. Bullets don't have eyes. Eric controlled the magnetic field, and all metal guns were suspended in midair, aiming at the surrounding officers and civilians, and he would shoot without hesitation if there was any movement. For Eric, these people are no different from the prostitutes in the concentration camp. The slogan is beautiful, but the essence is the same. Rush in. My gun. It's metal. Quickly untie all metal objects. As soon as a team of guards ran to the corridor, the guns and metal objects on their bodies floated into the air. After some people untied the metal, they fell to the ground and rushed to the conference room with their pants in their hands. Hey buddy, it doesn't work that way. The red tank let out a snarky grin, and smashed a fist bigger than a casserole, immediately beating the guards who came up to their knees, as if they were guarding the guards, and Wan Fu couldn't open it. Without weapons, in the face of red tanks blocking the way, the guards were unarmed, and no matter how many people came, it would be free. In the hall, except for Han Xiaoqing, the Red Devil, and Eric wearing a mind-shielding helmet, no one else could think beyond the White Queen. Master Aquaman, among these people, there are 2 high-level officials of Hydra, counting Howard under your feet, there are 5 members of the Hellfire Club. The bald general on the left is more afraid of death. The Queen White's telepathic voice transmission allowed Han Xiaoqing to know the thoughts of these people like the back of his hand. As for whether the White Queen carried any private goods, Han Xiaoqing did not know. This question is also not important. An officer bent down to press the emergency button, but as soon as he stretched out his finger, the Red Devil teleported behind him, stabbed a pair of bone knives in his waist, and sent him away. Fight with them. Several bodyguards were about to attack, but the saber-toothed tiger took care of 2 of them in a blink of an eye. Black Tom threw a stick, and it knocked 3 over. Magneto controlled the pistol and killed others who dared to do it. The scene is completely one-sided, making people see no hope at all. This is why humans fear mutants, because the gap between the two is really huge. Mutants can easily obtain the power that ordinary people have worked so hard to gain all their lives, and it can even threaten their lives at any time. The combination of envy, jealousy, fear, and hatred makes most people choose to eliminate mutants. Understanding is understanding, but it doesn't mean that Han Xiaoqing will support these people's actions. These politicians are all opportunists. Even Howard at his feet is not a good thing in itself. After checking in, Howard didn't step onto death because his other identity is Iron Man's father. Now that the plot has changed drastically, there will inevitably be a butterfly effect, and Han Xiaoqing is not sure whether Iron Man and others can still be born smoothly. But he doesn't regret doing these things. Let's talk about the future. Even if Iron Man and Hulk don't exist, for Han Xiaoqing, it's just that there are fewer check-in targets. Maybe the world will be more harmonious. What's more, Han Xiaoqing believes that this world has some correction capabilities. As long as the damage is not too serious, I think it's not a big problem. And up to now, no boss has come to trouble him along the timeline. Let Han Xiaoqing become more unscrupulous. Howard, who was trampled under his feet, didn't know Han Xiaoqing's plan, so he suppressed his anger and said, "Everything that is easy to discuss, there is no need to be so extreme, we can have a good talk." That's right, change the conditions. MPs also spoke. Stop your terrorist acts, there is still time for peace talks, don't make things more complicated. We can compensate you. Shut up, I will never compromise. Different people have different attitudes. Seeing these people start to give in, Han Xiaoqing smiled lightly. When you ordered the fire before, you didn't discuss it with us, and I don't think you have the capital to negotiate with me. Looking at his watch, Han Xiaoqing said, "There is 1 minute left, if you don't do anything, then I can only randomly kill 7 people among you. What should we do? We can't just sit around like this. Don't fall for it." Under the pressure of death, the eyes of a group of elderly people in their 50s and 60s gradually changed. To be able to achieve the current position, none of them is good. Among them are tough guys with strong bones, and there are also people who are greedy for life and afraid of death. They could tell that Han Xiaoqing was not joking. If he wanted to survive, he had to gamble on luck, or deal with the people around him as much as possible to increase his chances of surviving. And as long as one person does it, no matter whether the others are willing or not, they will be forced into a situation of cannibalism. Not everyone has the courage to face death. Eventually someone couldn't stand the pressure and grabbed the back of a knife and stabbed another congressman. "Ham, you're crazy. I don't want to die. Go to hell, I have long since disliked you. I'm fighting with you." Councillor Ham's knife was like a fuse, instantly detonating the audience. The rest of the councillors no longer restrained themselves, and the scuffle officially began. There are also various contradictions among politicians. They often earn red faces for their own interests, but now they are forced to a dead end, simply let go of their concerns, and solve problems in the most primitive way. What? Crackling. In the chaotic battle, from time to time someone was hit by a knife, someone picked up a bench and a kettle to hit someone, and a unique melee of the elderly started. 1 minute is long or short, 12 people died in the scuffle, and there are 11 left. 4 more people died than the number stipulated by Han Xiaoqing. Seeing that these congressmen overfulfilled their tasks, Han Xiaoqing glanced at the remaining 11 people. "I'm a trustworthy person. You have won the chance to live for yourself. Then, it's time to talk about mutants and humans." Having said that, Han Xiaoqing took out a Tsar bomb with a wave of his hand and placed it flat in the meeting room. As you can see, this is a Soviet Tsar bomb. I got it from the Aral Sea. I don't need to say more about its power. You have heard of it. Taking out the Tsar bomb, Han Xiaoqing calmly said to the 7 surviving congressmen, "Actually, I am a peace-loving person, and I don't like war." Quote. Ghost letter. The congressmen scoffed at Han Xiaoqing's words, but they were still shocked by the Tsar bomb that Han Xiaoqing took out. The ability to easily drop a nuclear bomb into a Pentagon conference room from thousands of miles away is hard to defend against. Once the other party detonates the Tsar bomb regardless of the consequences, the city of Washington will be reduced to ruins in an instant, and millions of people will die. Everything they have will come to nothing. Observing the reaction of the congressman, Han Xiaoqing continued, "You are very clear about the consequences of the nuclear bomb explosion. If you don't want a peaceful solution, I can only resolve it peacefully." Speaking of this, Han Xiaoqing raised his foot, and Howard finally regained his freedom, rubbing his face and getting up. "What do you want to do?" "I'm here for 3 things, fairness, fairness, and fairness." Han Xiaoqing spoke righteously. Madman. Howard's thoughts were instantly perceived by the White Queen. The White Queen didn't give Howard face, and said on the spot, "Lord Sea King, he scolded you in his heart." "My mother." Howard suddenly broke out in a cold sweat, looking at the White Queen, angry and frightened. "I know what I think in my heart, the ability of mutants is too unreasonable, this fool." The White Queen translated in real time, "He also called you a fool." "I didn't, don't talk nonsense." Howard quickly defended, "Otherwise he would really die." Han Xiaoqing glanced at the White Queen and Howard, and then said kindly, "It seems that you are still not convinced." After the words fell, Han Xiaoqing raised his hand, and the force of gravity followed the trend. Thump, thump. As far as Han Xiaoqing could see, all the congressmen, generals, clerks and bodyguards felt an invisible suction coming from below. Kneeling neatly on the ground. For a while, objects fell, and screams of panic followed one after another. Not only the meeting hall, but even the people in the aisle all knelt on the ground. Except for Eric and others, everyone in the Pentagon felt that their legs were firmly absorbed by the ground, unable to move half a point. There are kneeling people in the hall, aisle, stairs, bathroom, and railings. Eric knew that Han Xiaoqing could control gravity, but such precise and large-scale control was beyond his expectations. The White Queen, Black Adam, Red Devil, Red Tank and Saber-Toothed Tiger all fell silent. Especially the Red Devil. He had thought about looking for a chance to backstab and kill Han Xiaoqing before. But now, cold sweat instantly drenched his vest, and he stood obediently aside. Everyone in the meeting room looked at Han Xiaoqing with fear. In an instant, many people secretly made up their minds, no matter what request Han Xiaoqing made, they would immediately agree to it. Looking around to make sure nothing was missed, Han Xiaoqing said, "My meaning is very simple. Everyone will live together peacefully in the future, who is in favor and who is against." "Yes, yes, I agree too. People or swordsmen, I am fish, who dares to object now?" As soon as Han Xiaoqing opened his mouth, several congressmen expressed their opinions one after another. "Are they serious?" Han Xiaoqing looked at the White Queen. "That's right." The White Queen nodded slightly. She could tell at a glance who said something insincere. Although these people were not angry, they were indeed afraid. At least he didn't dare to act rashly until he thought of a way to deal with Han Xiaoqing and others. Then go to the next stop. After returning the Tsar bomb to the Chenkin ring, Han Xiaoqing, the White Queen, Eric, the Red Devil and others held hands and disappeared in a blink of an eye. Went to the Soviet Union, followed the example of a gourd, killed 8 people, killed chickens to scare monkeys, and deterred them with force. Afterwards, Han Xiaoqing asked Eric to go to Shangjiang to meet Professor X and the others. Finding a free time, Han Xiaoqing used teleportation to return to Manhattan, USA alone, and received Lex Luthor in a deserted corner. With a flash of light, a young white man with long hair appeared in Han Xiaoqing's sight. "Hello, boss." In his youth, Luthor looked like he was just in his early years, not yet very smart, and looked a little handsome. After taking a look at Lex Luthor, Han Xiaoqing said, "Luthor, I want you to find a way to go undercover in Hydra. It is best to become a high-level Hydra. Can you do it?" Luthor smiled. "I am very confident in myself, but before that, I need to know what kind of power Hydra belongs to. It's not difficult. Han Xiaoqing activated the blue hand of Shuangquan hands to directly transmit the information he knew about Hydra to Luther's mind. Sensing the information about Hydra emerging in his mind, Luther's smile became brighter, and he said cynically, "It seems interesting to cut off one head and grow two to replace it, and the task is guaranteed to be completed." Han Xiaoqing took out a small bag of jewelry. "This is your startup capital. For identity issues, you can find a solution by yourself. If you encounter troubles that cannot be solved, you can call this number for help." At the end, Han Xiaoqing gave Luther a phone number, and then let Luther play freely. Luther, who has a level 9 intelligence, can be said to be one of the smartest people on Earth. Even compared to Iron Man, Luther is not much worse, and he acts even more unscrupulously. In the 600th world, Luther caused a lot of trouble for Superman. If it weren't for Superman's halo as the protagonist, he would have been cold for a long time. The current Lex Luthor is still relatively young, but Han Xiaoqing is not worried about Luthor's safety. If he can't even do this well, it's useless to keep him. Among the current rewards, only Mela remained unclaimed. After thinking about it, Han Xiaoqing still didn't claim it immediately, and planned to deal with it after Eric and others were resettled. With a thought, Han Xiaoqing returned to Shangjiang through mind transmission. The next day, the Cuban incident was reported in the newspapers of both the United States and the Soviet Union. The fleets of the two countries were attacked by mysterious creatures in the Caribbean Sea, and the entire army was destroyed. Shocking, prehistoric creatures appear. Where will the two countries go? The United States and the Soviet Union reached a peaceful consensus to stop the Cold War and reveal the secrets together. Regarding the matter of mutants, both countries have issued a gag order, unanimously blaming the mysterious creature to avoid discordant voices in the country. In order to enhance persuasiveness, the Emperor Organization also made public some information about the Titans Godzilla. The world was in an uproar, and the Emperor Organization took advantage of the trend to rise and obtained a lot of startup funds. As for the truth, often only a few people know. Huaxia, Shangjiang. After a night of rest, everyone gathered together to discuss follow-up matters. Charles was awake, knowing what had happened, silent and depressed. Han Xiaoqing did not persuade anything, but said seriously, although the United States and the Soviet Union have temporarily covered up the truth of the Cuban incident, they are terrified of mutants and will definitely do everything possible to deal with mutants. I already have a plan for the future. According to the plan, it is suggested to divide the mutants into two types and place them separately. Beast, Professor, look, is that a dinosaur? It's unbelievable that I saw a living dinosaur. Mystique Riven stood on the beach and saw a triceratops peeing under a coconut tree at first sight. The triceratops didn't take Ruiwen and the others seriously, it shook and walked away. The other mutants and Han Xiaoqing were observing the surrounding environment. The blue sky and white clouds, the sea and the sky, and the beautiful environment are like a paradise. Charles was silent and still hadn't gotten over the Cuban incident. If he didn't care about the future of mutants, he would have parted ways with Han Xiaoqing long ago. Red Tank glanced at Charles, snorted coldly, and turned his head aside, even though the misunderstanding between him and Charles had been explained clearly. But he still didn't like Charles. Arturia and Han Xiaoqing stood side by side, enjoying the sea breeze, with a charming smile on their faces. What a beautiful island. Beautiful, but also dangerous. As soon as Han Xiaoqing's words fell, as if to confirm the authenticity, there was a roar of a beast in the distance. The sea monster Shan can distinguish the position by hearing the sound. It is somewhat similar to a bat. It can perceive the shape and size of objects through the echo of sound waves. After hearing the sound, it is a little nervous. This sound is so scary, and it is not small. Welcome to Skull Island, which will become the Garden of Eden for mutants. Han Xiaoqing smiled and said, but there are indeed many powerful monsters and some two tribes here, so don't run around if you have nothing to do. Skull Island is one of the two paths Han Xiaoqing planned for mutants. The first is to continue to maintain the Hellfire Club, allowing mutants to have certain influence and status in the outside world. The second is to migrate to Skull Island, where they live and work in peace and contentment, regardless of external disputes. In fact, Han Xiaoqing can also bring mutants to live in the inner world of the Earth. However, Compared to Skull Island, the inner world is more dangerous, and various monsters emerge endlessly. Some Titan monsters, even Charles and Eric today cannot deal with them. Bring people to Skull Island to get used to it first, and it will not be too late to send them to the inner world after their strength and production capacity have improved. In this way, the mutants are equivalent to being divided into 3 parts. If you look at it according to the sect of the fantasy world, the mutants in the Hellfire Club outside belong to the outer disciples. The mutants on Skull Island are inner disciples. The mutants who will go to the inner Earth world in the future belong to the core disciples. There are several advantages to doing this. There is no longer any barrier between mutants, and they can choose their living environment according to their own preferences and corresponding abilities. Even if something happens, it won't be taken over by others. Professor, this is information about my control of Skull Island, please share it with everyone. In order for everyone to understand the situation on the island as soon as possible, Han Xiaoqing extracted information about Skull Island and handed it to Charles, who then used telepathy to pass it on to all mutants on the island. Charles is now somewhat resistant to Han Xiaoqing, but for the sake of the mutants, the good-natured Charles still shared information about Skull Island. After a while, everyone understood that the Skull Island they were on was an island where monsters were rampant. But everyone was not afraid, instead they were very interested and full of desire to explore. Right now, the most powerful people on Skull Island are King Kong and the sleeping skeleton lizard. Except for Han Xiaoqing and Artoria, the mutants are Magneto, Professor X, Mystique, Devastator, Kraken, Angel, Beast, Darwin, White Queen, Red Devil, Red Tank, Saber-toothed Tiger, Black Tom, Torrent. The lowest ones are all second-order mutants. As long as they don't die, their safety is still guaranteed. It was also the first time for Han Xiaoqing to set foot on Skull Island, thanks to the ability of mind teleportation. Denying let him find an island that is not marked on the map in the vast sea, and it may take a lot of time. For the various monsters on Skull Island, Han Xiaoqing has seen them in the inner world, and now he is thinking about whether they can check in at special places. As for punching King Kong, Han Xiaoqing has no such idea for the time being. It is only 1962, and King Kong is estimated to be less than 30 meters high. He is still in his infancy, and he is still a baby of several thousand tons. There is only one chance to check in. It is too wasteful to check in now, at least wait until King Kong is an adult. Let's go, choose a place to build a base, and Lao Wan will have to contribute more to this. Eric heard this and smiled, no problem. He can control the magnetic field, extract various metals from the earth, and build an unbreakable castle. It will take some time and effort, but Eric thinks it will be worth it. Because protecting his family is his dream. Ladies and gentlemen, come with me to visit the future home now. Familiarize yourself with the familiar environment, and at the same time be vigilant at all times, don't fall behind. Clear. Everyone adjusted their formation and started to set off. After crossing the beach, they walked into the jungle. Skull Island still belongs to the original ecological environment. There are no roads, and weeds are overgrown along the way. Lu Xuan once said, "There are no roads in the world, and if there are many people walking, it will become a road." The Red Tank and the Red Devil opened the way in front, overcoming the thorns and thorns. Han Xiaoqing pressed again with gravity, and a spacious road came out. As he was walking, he suddenly heard howling wolves, and saw several giant wolves with strange shapes rushing out from all directions. This is a group of monsters that look like dinosaurs and giant wolves. They walk on their hind legs, and their sharp forelimbs are used as weapons for attacking. The long sharp claws all show that they are very vicious carnivores. It's a knife-back jackal. Because the information about Skull Island was shared, everyone recognized the identity of the monster in front of them at a glance. I'll fix them. The Red Devil swung his 2 knives and was ready to strike. Red Tank clenched his fists, ready to move. The knife-back jackal is a terrifying predator to ordinary people, but it is not an invincible existence to mutants with various superpowers. Go away, Han Xiaoqing said indifferently, and several ferocious knife-back jackals ran away with their tails between their legs when they heard the sound. After obtaining the red of all beings, Han Xiaoqing has the ability to communicate with animals, and has also become the guardian of animals. If it is not necessary, he will not kill animals indiscriminately, so as not to break the balance of nature. Unless the animals are extremely vicious, they will have a sense of closeness to Han Xiaoqing. Usually, they will not take the initiative to attack, but will obey Han Xiaoqing's orders. The saber-back jackal is ferocious, but it is not evil. It is all for survival, which is within Han Xiaoqing's tolerance. The earth has a hollow area, where there are many large ancient creatures, usually isolated from the outside world, but connected by passages. Skull Island originally floated up from the Earth's core world, and there is an entrance to the Earth's core world. The radiation here is relatively high, so there are many prehistoric creatures, some of which I have never seen before, so be careful. After walking for a while, under Han Xiaoqing's explanation, everyone came to a lake area with beautiful mountains and clear waters. The air is fresh, the birds are singing and the flowers are fragrant, and groups of egrets fly by leisurely, making people feel comfortable. Eric looked around. I think it's good here. There are water sources and mountains to rely on. You can build houses and grow crops. It's close to the water source, and there are many animals. Look where it is. Han Xiaoqing pointed casually, and there were several small dirt bumps on the water. But if you take a closer look, you will find that it is a lone reef bull devil. The lone reef bull demon belongs to the flora and fauna of the order buffalo. Its growth is generally between 12 and 14 meters. The length of the huge horn can reach 18 meters, and the weight can reach dozens of tons. The lone reef bull demon continues the behavior of bovids. Han Xiaoqing has never seen it in the inner world. It is very likely that the native creatures on Skull Island are new species that have mutated due to the long-term impact of high-energy radiation. Dense vegetation grew on their backs, becoming a hybrid creature of animals and plants, able to hide underwater for a long time. The head is buried in the water, and the back full of plants is exposed above the water, which looks like soil bags with vegetation. As if hearing the movement on the shore, the lone reef bull demon slowly came out of the water. His huge body felt oppressive, his head was lowered, and he looked at Han Xiaoqing and the others with clear eyes, calm and gentle. Oh, is it going to attack us? Alex asked nervously. The lone reef bull demon is a herbivorous creature with a relatively docile personality, but you'd better not provoke it, otherwise the huge horns on its head will become a terrifying weapon. While Han Xiaoqing was speaking, he stepped to the edge of the water, reached out and touched the bowed head of the Gujiao bull demon. As far as the appearance is concerned, the Gujiao bull demon looks naive, the horns on his head are similar to deer antlers, and he has a good personality. Feeling Han Xiaoqing's kindness, he didn't move around. The moment the palm touched the lone reef bull demon, Han Xiaoqing's palm emitted a faint red light, which was the light of all beings red, which could make the animals obey Han Xiaoqing's instructions. And at the moment of contact, Han Xiaoqing also acquired the ability of the lone reef bull demon. When necessary, he can have 4 atria, absorb radiation and perform photosynthesis, as well as the power of the lone reef bull demon. This kind of ability can turn an ordinary person into a little Superman in an instant, but for Han Xiaoqing today, it can only be said that nothing is better than nothing. Relax, go back and rest. After saying that, the lone reef bull demon blinked his eyes, turned around obediently and returned to the water. Emma White Queen looked at Han Xiaoqing curiously. Master Haiwang, how many abilities do you have? This is a secret. Never let anyone find out your cards, so that you can live for a long time. Han Xiaoqing just smiled, and did not answer the White Queen's question directly. Artoria looked at the back of the lone reef cow demon, and licked her lips. Such a big cow should be able to make a lot of steaks. As if feeling the evil, hungry intention from King Dumao, the lone reef bull demon shuddered. His long legs moved a little faster, and he squatted in the water without showing his head. Everyone continued to move forward and saw many unique creatures on Skull Island along the way, such as various herbivorous dinosaurs, carnivorous dinosaurs, giant insects, Icarus wings and so on. Except for the inner world of the Earth, these creatures have long been extinct in the outside world. Being in it makes people feel as if they have returned to the prehistoric era. After walking for a while, an ancient city wall was found in front of it. The city wall was mottled and broken. On some well-preserved stone walls, some murals painted with yellow paint could be seen. There are people in front, natives, and they have no malicious intentions. Charles's telepathy could easily sense the natives hiding around the city walls. Eric could feel some iron objects moving around, and the White Queen could also feel that there were people around. Except for the inexperienced Ruiwen and the others, Han Xiaoqing, Artoria, and Saber-Toothed Tiger all discovered the abnormality early on. Not long after approaching the ancient city, a group of ewes with painted patterns, bare upper body, animal skins and grass skirts around their waists appeared in everyone's sight. After the Yue tribe appeared, they pointed at Han Xiaoqing and others with spears and bows and arrows, and approached them step by step in silence. Raven looked at Charles. Are you sure they are not malicious? Yes, they are just afraid that we are bad people. Charles used telepathy, and soon learned about the situation of the Yue tribe, and learned more specific information on Skull Island. For thousands of years, the Iwi people have been living on the isolated Skull Island. I don't know from which day, the King Kong family of giant beasts on the island began to guard them and protect them from being eaten by other monsters. Therefore, the Yue tribe regarded King Kong as a god and enshrined the King Kong family all the time. The Yue people are simple and kind. Although the living conditions are very difficult, they are unsmiling and can't speak. They usually communicate with sign language, but their daily life is very fulfilling. And Charles also discovered that they were not the first people to land on the island. Before them, there have been outsiders. Facing the pressing Yue tribe, Han Xiaoqing calmed everyone down. The Utes did not have any malicious intentions. After all, they were outsiders. Han Xiaoqing's original intention was not to invade, but to quell the disputes between humans and mutants, avoid unnecessary casualties, conveniently check in, and enhance his own strength. Moreover, the arrival of the mutants can also protect the Utes, at least to ensure that they will not be hunted by the skeleton lizard. In fact, the Eevees are also quite unlucky. Every time outsiders enter Skull Island, it will bring disaster to them. Especially in Godzilla 2, King of the Monsters, Ghidorah awakened the dormant titans, including Kamazotz. Kamazotz is a bat god in Mayan mythology. Means, dead bat, in the Quiche language. In the myths and legends of Central America, Kamazotz haunts bats at night, symbolizing the night, death and sacrifice, the evil god who drinks blood for murder. Later, the Beastmaster contest ended with Godzilla winning. Brother puts all the titans to sleep. Kamazotz didn't dare to disobey his brother's order, and obediently went back to sleep. As a result, in order to explore the Earth's inner world, the Emperor organization located the entrance to the Earth's inner world on Skull Island and started blasting. Awaken the sleeping Kamazotz again. The Dark Lord Kamazotz is obviously not good-tempered, because he doesn't like sunlight, so he controlled the thunderstorm created by Ghidorah, covering the sky over Skull Island, and indirectly led to the extermination of the Yue tribe. In the end, the Yue tribe died and only one little girl was left. If King Kong hadn't shot, it is estimated that there would be no survivors on the island. It can be said that the Emperor's organization can do whatever it wants, and it is the first place to cause trouble, and it will cause a lot of trouble every time, just like Fatty Wong in Tomb Raider's notes. If it weren't for Godzilla and King Kong who worked tirelessly to clean up the mess, how many people would have been killed by the Emperor organization? Let's not talk about the Imperial organization that cheats people without regret. Although the number of Han Xiaoqing's side is small, their strength is much stronger than that of the Utes. In a real fight, the saber-toothed tiger can wipe out the Utes alone. In the face of absolute strength, the Yue tribe has no ability to resist. Relax, we are not enemies. Han Xiaoqing signaled everyone to relax, meaningless fighting, avoid it if you can. At this moment, two dark-skinned people in Air Force clothes ran from behind the ancient city. One is American pilot Hank Marlowe. The other is the Japanese pilot Junhei Iko. Both of them crashed on Skull Island during World War II. Originally, the two were in a hostile relationship, but they shook hands and made peace when they knew they met the pretty boy from Skull Island. After coming to Skull Island, in order to survive, the two had to put aside their previous suspicions and work together to become brothers and sisters struggling to survive on the deserted island. Han Xiaoqing remembers that the story of King Kong, Skull Island mainly took place in 1973, 11 years before now, when Junping Yiguang was dead, and only Hank was left. Now it seems that Junping Yiguang has not been eaten by the skeleton lizard in this time period. Don't be nervous, everyone relax, I can't believe it. Hank walked out of the crowd, looking excited. At this time, Hank was in his 40s, middle-aged, and his skin was almost as good as Darwin's due to years of exposure to the sun. He was wearing an old flight suit and had a beard. Junping Yiguang, with a mustache, looked younger and thinner, and he was also very excited at this time. He and Hank have been on this island for 18 years. They have tried to escape from Skull Island several times, but all failed because of the storm outside Skull Island. The life of these years has been very difficult. The medical conditions and living conditions on the island are very poor, and they almost died in the mouth of monsters many times. Now that he finally saw an outsider, he was naturally ecstatic. This moment appears in my dreams every day, and it has come true. It has been 18 years. You can't imagine how we spent it. Hank chattered endlessly, telling about his and Junping Yiguang's adventures on Skull Island. Both Charles and the White Queen used telepathy to read their memories, and most of them are still true. Raven asked, "Did you land here in a plane crash?" "Yes." "Oh, shit." Hank was quite excited just now, but now he saw the appearance of Mystique Raven, Red Devil and Beast Hank clearly, and was startled. In all fairness, the appearance of Rui Wen and the Red Devil is indeed very similar to the devil in the fairy tales. Ordinary people will feel scared at first sight, which is a normal reaction. The appearance of Beast Hank is also different from ordinary people, and the Red Tank, which is close to 3 meters in size and looks like a little giant, makes such a team look really unfriendly. The people of the Away tribe hadn't heard any stories about demons, and they didn't know what mutants were, so they didn't behave too abnormally. Charles saw the memory of the other party, and smiled and said, "Lieutenant Hank Marlowe, belonging to the 45th Squadron, my name is Charles, you can also call me a professor, don't be afraid, we are just planning to build a home here. You guys actually want to settle down here, are you crazy? Do you know how scary this place is? Where is the boat? Where is the boat? I want to leave here, I want to go home." Junping Yiguang spoke fluent English, should have learned from Ben Hank, with a hint of crying in his tone, and his mental state seemed unstable. Unable to remember, Hank seemed much calmed down, and said, "Let's go back to the village first, you definitely don't want to stay here overnight." The crowd followed the youths and came to a huge wooden city wall. Passing through the city wall, a river came into view. On the opposite side of the river, there are lush trees and tall mountains. There is a thatched cottage on the plain at the foot of the mountain, which is like a paradise and maintains the original style. "Old Juan, in the past few days, you have stayed here to learn the experience of living in the wild with the youths. At the same time, you will choose an area suitable for living and build a relatively complete residence. There will be more mutants coming in the future. Aya and I went to say hello to King Kong first, so as not to conflict in the future." Having said that, Han Xiaoqing took Artoria's hand and flew up. There is no need for Han Xiaoqing to worry about life matters, Eric and the others can solve them by themselves. In contrast, Han Xiaoqing still thinks pretty boys are more interesting. Hank was a little dumbfounded when he saw this. It flew up. "God, are they angels? He is the king of the sea, the other is King Arthur, and I am the angel." The angel Salvador stood up, showing 2 pairs of wings, and flew in the air. The surrounding youths made hand gestures or communicated with each other with their eyes. So Charles and the White Queen understood what they were thinking. Not long after, Han Xiaoqing and Artoria saw Zhe Yuli's pretty boy in the forest. At this time, Liangzi is still in the infancy stage, close to 30 meters by visual inspection, although he is also very tall, but compared with his brother, there is still a huge gap. Han Xiaoqing remembered that Liangzi's parents were only more than 50 meters tall, but in King Kong vs. Godzilla, Liangzi grew to more than 100 meters and became a king-level titan, which can be said to be extremely talented. Among the titans, there are usually 2 camps, destroyers and guardians. Both Godzilla and King Kong are in the guardians camp. Godzilla is the guardian of the balance of the earth and treats everyone equally. Whether it is a monster or a human, as long as it touches his bottom line, under the breath of atoms, all beings are equal. However, King Kong has an unusual favor for human beings, and this kind of interracial feeling has to be talked about thousands of years ago. Although the King Kong family and the Godzilla family are both in the Guardian camp, they are both violent and often fight, which is a feud. The ancient King Kong is a Titan-level monster that can grow up to 100 meters away. Because of racial conflicts, they fought against the Godzilla family, causing both sides to lose. The King Kong family suffered heavy losses, and after being hunted down by the skeleton lizard, they fled to live on Skull Island. At that time, Mr. Brother was living on Skull Island, but he was discovered by King Kong, and he did not talk about martial arts. Later, the boss was beaten away, and King Kong occupied the island. Many years ago, in order to avoid the war, the Awe tribe followed the prophet to the lost world, Skull Island. Build a wall on your own domain to resist monsters, and worship Godzilla at that time as a god. I never thought that the King Kong family would fight 3 times, and the elder brother would run away overnight. The Awe tribe saw the wind and turned around, and regarded King Kong as the new patron saint. Since then, the King Kong family has settled in Skull Island. However, it is not safe to come to Skull Island. For thousands of years, skeleton lizards have been chasing and killing continuously. In addition, the amount of radiation on Skull Island is much less than that in the core world, so many King Kongs have begun to weaken and degenerate, is constantly decreasing. The King Kong family who lost the source of radiation energy is not as strong as before, and they have degenerated one after another. For example, King Kong's parents are only more than 50 meters tall, which is completely inferior to King Kong in ancient times. But they are still quite protective of the ewes, using their own strength to protect the ewes as a kind of symbiotic relationship. About 100 years ago, the King Kong clan fought a decisive battle with the skeleton lizard. The battlefield is full of bright red magma and tumbling thunder. Countless monsters are fighting together, like a battle of gods that will destroy the world. The King Kong clan paid the price of almost exterminating the clan in this war, and only then drove the skeleton lizards back underground. Only the 2 strongest King Kong survived, and they are the parents of Liang Zai. Soon after, Liangzi's mother became pregnant and gave birth to Liangzi, but at this time, the cunning skeleton lizard made a comeback. At that time, Pretty Boy was just born, and his mother was very weak, and was besieged by a large number of skeleton lizards. In order to protect Liangzi, his parents used their bodies to build an unbreakable wall, and finally died of exhaustion. The place of death is called God's Burial Ground by the Awe people. And the young Pretty Boy can only watch this scene happen helplessly, weak and helpless. The anger towards the skeleton lizard became his source of strength. But the sadness buried deep in his heart gave him the wish to protect the weak. In addition, the Awe tribe is also desperately protecting the young Liangzi so that Liangzi can grow up safely, and the relationship between the two is getting closer. In the end, Liang Zai became a thundering thunder god in the legend of the Iwi tribe. However, compared to the power of his ancestors, Liangzi at this time is still a child of several thousand tons, with a lot of room for development. What a big orangutan! Artoria likes animals more. Although her favorite is lions, it is still very interesting to see cute boys. Han Xiaoqing flew down with Artoria. As the distance gets closer, the more you can feel the oppression from the behemoth. This is the coercion brought by body size, and has nothing to do with strength. Many people have giant phobia. When they see huge creatures, they can't help but be afraid. It is the original gene carved in their bones. It seems that many animals in the city have never seen a tiger in their entire lives, but when they see a tiger for the first time, they still feel fear. Of course, there is also a saying that newborn calves are not afraid of tigers, but such calves usually do not live long. The 2 landed on Liangzai's head, but Liangzai still didn't respond, and didn't even raise his eyelids. If it wasn't for the thunderous snoring, Han Xiaoqing would have thought that Liangzai had died. Such a big head, very stiff hair, such an interesting monster. Artoria stroked the Pretty Boy's hair, and tied a bow. As expected by Han Xiaoqing, the system notification arrived as scheduled. Ding! The host is currently located on top of King Kong on Skull Island and meets the check-in requirements. Do you want to check in? Not checking in yet. Han Xiaoqing didn't choose to check in immediately, and planned to raise him later. With the continuous improvement of strength, ordinary rewards have barely improved Han Xiaoqing. When the Pretty Boy becomes a Titan-level king, that is the time to check in. Crouching down, Han Xiaoqing put his hand on the top of Liangzai's head, and under the surge of the red of all beings, he gained Liangzai's strength, which is about 20 times stronger than the previous Lone Reef Bull Demon, which is not bad. Maybe it was a little itchy, Liangzi stretched out his hand and scratched his head. Han Xiaoqing took Artoria to avoid the palm. Hey, pretty boy, the sun is drying your ass, get up. With telepathic transmission, Liangzi suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Han Xiaoqing and Arturia in front of him. These two villains are standing in the sky like this. Liangzi is puzzled. Han Xiaoqing sent a voice transmission. Little boy, we are new neighbors, please take care of us in the future. Liangzi looked at Han Xiaoqing and opened his mouth wide. Hey, you are talking. Yes, my name is Han Xiaoqing, she is Saber, and she just came to the island today. Han Xiaoqing sent a voice transmission. It's great that you can communicate. You can live on the island, but you can't harm the animals on the island indiscriminately. Otherwise, I'm welcome. In addition, you have to plant some bananas for me, otherwise I may not protect you in case of danger. The pretty boy woo-woo-oh-oh yelled at each other. Han Xiaoqing didn't understand animal language, but he could understand what he wanted to express. What kind of banana to eat? Eat this, it will be strong. Han Xiaoqing waved his hand, and took out a Tsar bomb from the Chenkin ring. For me. As soon as he saw the Tsar bomb, Liangzi's eyes lit up. Most of the giant titans feed on nuclear radiation. Although today's pretty boys can't withstand nuclear explosions, they still have no problem eating nuclear fuel. There are many protective devices for nuclear bombs, there are no specific opening conditions, and they will not explode. For handsome boys, it is the best nourishment. You are a good friend. I will cover you when you are on the island in the future. Liangzi got the Tsar bomb and was so happy that he opened his mouth to bite. Han Xiaoqing took Arturia back a distance. He was not afraid of nuclear radiation, Arturia was not. Han Xiaoqing didn't want her to have an accident. Pretty boy was like gnawing on sugar cane. He crushed the Tsar bomb with his fangs and chewed the nuclear fuel inside. Looking at his expression of enjoyment, those who didn't know thought he was high. Soon, a Tsar bomb was sucked out by Liangzi. Liangzi's body size seemed to have grown a little in a short period of time, but his size was huge, and he couldn't see much change for a while. Liangzi is relatively simple. If you give me delicious food, you will be my good friend. After a full meal, Liangzi quickly got acquainted with Han Xiaoqing, and the more they chatted, the more speculative they became, and he was almost begging for help. But this time, Han Xiaoqing will be the big brother, and Liangzi will be the younger brother. In the beginning, Liangzi was still a little unconvinced. He is also the leader of Skull Island, the patron saint of the Awei tribe. How can he be so small if he can be a little brother like this? It wasn't until Han Xiaoqing suppressed him with gravity and lay down on the ground that he was convinced by Han Xiaoqing, the big brother. The temper of the Titan is similar to that of the hero in Water Margin. Those who can beat them are called Quonao, those who can't beat them are called brothers, and those who can't beat them are called elder brothers. Arturia followed Han Xiaoqing. She didn't understand animal language, so it was quite interesting to see Han Xiaoqing's flirtation with pretty boy. At dusk, following the afterglow of the setting sun, Liangzi headed towards the stronghold of the Awei tribe. Sitting on Liangzi's shoulders, Arturia leaned on Han Xiaoqing's back and whispered, "Watching the sunset here has a special feeling. If you like it, I will watch it with you in the future." Han Xiaoqing enjoyed such a leisurely time. But he still has a lot of things to do. When he thinks of the endless superheroes and villains in the future, he can't suppress his desire for power. Although he is already very strong now, Han Xiaoqing feels that it is not enough. Liangzi has the wisdom no less than that of human beings, and can distinguish good from bad. In Liangzi's eyes, human beings are friends and objects of his protection. Today I can meet a little brother who can communicate, and Liangzi is still in a beautiful mood, and he walks much more briskly. In fact, he is also very lonely. Since his parents died, Liangzi has been the only King Kong in the world. He has no family to accompany him, no brothers from the same race, and he can't find a suitable girlfriend. He is destined to be a bachelor in this life. My heart is bitter. Now that I have recognized a big brother, I finally have a feeling of being with my family. Bang, bang, bang. Liangzi and Han Xiaoqing communicated with each other, talking about their interesting stories on Skull Island, while walking forward with big feet. Every step they take will leave a huge footprint on the ground. At this time, the sun is gradually dimming, and some creatures that like to hunt in the dark begin to appear. With a handsome boy around, ordinary monsters would automatically stay away, but there are always some who are not open-eyed. Look, Xiaoqing. Artoria pointed forward, and saw countless black spots approaching rapidly, like a dark cloud enveloping Han Xiaoqing and the others. Han Xiaoqing looked around and saw that the black shadow was not a dark cloud, but a large group of bat-like creatures, but much larger than bats. It's the horrified vulture. Han Xiaoqing has seen the frightened vulture in the Earth core world, so he naturally recognizes it. The frightened vultures on Skull Island are relatively smaller than the frightened vultures in the Earth's core world. Their wingspan is about 2 or 3 meters long. They are brown and black in color, with sharp teeth and sharp claws. They are also bloodthirsty. To ordinary people, they are already a terrible predator. Moreover, the frightened vultures come and go in groups, even a third-tier mutant like a saber-toothed tiger can't handle it. Roar, Pretty Boy growled. However, the frightened vultures were not afraid. Instead, they scrambled towards them at an extremely fast speed like hungry wolves craving delicious food. All things have spirits, but there are always some exceptions, such as the frightened vultures. They are a group of greedy predators, although they also want to reproduce for their own race, but they can easily destroy the ecological balance, so they are not liked by pretty boys. Han Xiaoqing also doesn't like this kind of creature. It's too ugly and greedy for things, which is always disgusting. The individual strength of the frightened vultures is not very strong, but they are superior in numbers, and their speed is astonishing, coupled with their fearless fighting style, making them fearsome night hunters. Han Xiaoqing visually estimated that there were about 400 or 500 frightened vultures in front of him. Too much is not good. Although the natural world pays attention to the law of the jungle, once the balance is broken, the impact will be great. Since these frightened vultures found him without opening their eyes, Han Xiaoqing didn't have to be polite to them. Leaping forward, Han Xiaoqing was in midair, took out Neptune's trident, and performed a subduing demon flurry dance. When the halberd was swung, lightning shot out, and the aura pierced Cheng Hong. With one blow, lightning like a thunder dragon pierced through the frightened vultures' team in an instant, directly sweeping out a bright universe among the dark frightened vultures. Many scorched frightened vultures fell from the sky with smoke, and the originally mighty team was reduced by half in an instant. Even the frightened vultures were not very intelligent, they were scared and fled in all directions. After Liangzai walked away, these frightened vultures flew back, snatching and gnawing on the remains of their own kind. These frightened vultures would eat anything. Fortunately, Skull Island was surrounded by storms all year round. Otherwise, it would definitely not be a good thing for the human beings outside to let them run out to reproduce. As for why they were not killed, it was because every living creature had its own value. Scary vultures are also a link in the food chain of Skull Island. As long as the number is well controlled, there will be no problem. Killing them all will destroy the ecological balance. You can't kill them all just because they are ugly. Wu brother is so powerful, how did you make lightning? Seeing Han Xiaoqing's lightning flashes as soon as he made a move, Liangzai couldn't help being interested. Don't underestimate the ambition of a titan. Pretty Boy also longs for great power. This is martial arts. You are not human, so you probably can't learn it, but you can try it when you have time. Han Xiaoqing doesn't mind teaching Liangzai. If Liangzai can really learn the Overlord Halberd technique, it should be very interesting. Oh, then it's settled, you can't lie to me. The pretty boy let out a cheerful roar. Arturia couldn't understand, but Han Xiaoqing nodded, I won't lie to you. Hearing Han Xiaoqing's promise, the pretty boy was very happy, and approached the bamboo forest with bouncing. This is the territory of the long-legged female monster. The long-legged female monster is a huge monster of the spider class. It is different from other spiders. They have slender limbs. When they are completely quiet, their long limbs are flawless under the cover of the bamboo forest, making the entire bamboo forest a deadly trap. Theoretically, the long-legged female monster belongs to the mutant species of blind spider, which is good at opportunism. It has 8 sharp long knife feet, and the tips are highly poisonous. Many prey enter the bamboo forest and are stabbed without warning. The ground, unable to move. After stabbing the prey, the long legs of the long-legged mother monster will suck up the living nutrients in the prey like straws. They don't eat people, but they are all juicers. However, compared to the attack power, the long-legged female monster's defense is relatively weak. Seeing Liangzi passing by, these long-legged monsters backed away wisely, obviously more sensible than the frightened vulture. Han Xiaoqing looked at Artoria. Wait for me here. After saying that, Han Xiaoqing flashed and appeared on top of the head of the tallest long-legged spider mother. The red of all beings was activated, and gained the ability to regenerate the long-legged spider mother's severed limbs. At the same time, a reminder came from the check-in system. Ding! The host is currently on top of the long-legged female monster and meets the check-in conditions. Do you want to check in? Because of the redness of all beings, the long-legged spider mother didn't move when she sensed Han Xiaoqing's presence. Standing firmly on the head of the long-legged female monster, Han Xiaoqing silently said, "Punch in." Punching in, counting down for 10 seconds, 10, 9, 8, 3, 2, 1, punching in successfully. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the 8 spider soul bone of Duluo world. 8 spider soul bone. The external spirit bone of the man-faced demon spider can strengthen itself, devour it, and add poisonous properties. Do you want to receive it? It can actually reward spirit bones, but this thing is useless for me to hold. Seeing the reward, Han Xiaoqing was not interested, and immediately teleported back to Liangzi's shoulder. The area of Skull Island is not small. When Liangzi came to the stronghold of the Awei tribe, the sun had completely set, and a bright moon hung high in the sky. Liangzi took a step forward, avoiding the traps along the way with ease, approaching the walled city. The moon shines on the shadows, and the visibility is relatively high. It's King Kong. King Kong is here. The sea monster Shan stood on the wall of the walled city, saw Liangzi from a distance, and beckoned others to come and see. For those who live in the city, the monsters on Skull Island are very strange. They all shared information about Skull Island and King Kong from Charles, but they were still shocked to see King Kong with their own eyes. With a height of 30 meters, it is definitely the largest creature they have seen so far. Even the Red Devil, who has lived for thousands of years, is the first time he has seen a giant titan with his own eyes. Darwin exclaimed, "What a miracle of life! Fortunately, King Kong is a friend of mankind, otherwise the consequences would be disastrous." Ruiwen has returned to her blue skin. Because of Han Xiaoqing's guidance, she did not continuously simulate the genes of other mutants. The more simulated genes, the stronger mystique Ruiwen is, but the genes in Ruiwen's body also have limits. If they frequently simulate other people's X genes, they may collapse. So Han Xiaoqing's suggestion to Ruiwen is to adapt for a period of time first, and then simulate Darwin's X gene to obtain the ability of survival and evolution of the fittest, so that the gradual progress will not cause the gene to collapse. Charles, Eric and others also went up to the wall to watch the majestic King Kong from a distance. Eric laughed. Who can believe that he is still a child? Yeah, it's the first time I've seen such a big child. Charles has come out of his depression and plans to start a new life. He's a man with a strong sense of duty, who feels it's his duty to watch over young mutants and keep them from going astray. Sean, Alex, Salvador and others are all talking about King Kong. The Awei people have long been used to it. After learning of King Kong's arrival, they were busy for a while, took out various foods and put them into a large basket, and put them on the open space outside the wall through pulleys. For the Yiwei people, King Kong is the patron saint. Without the protection of King Kong, the Yiwei people would have already become history. So every time King Kong comes, they will bring out the best food and treats. Darwin has sharper eyes and saw Han Xiaoqing and Artoria on Liangzi's shoulders. Master Neptune is on King Kong. Eric looked around and said with a smile, "It seems that they get along well." Charles nodded. With King Kong's support, our future construction work will be much easier. I'm not worried about other monsters, but I'm afraid that the skeleton lizard will come out. The children have not yet dealt with the ability to hold monsters. Don't worry, I will turn our new home into an invincible steel fortress. Eric is full of confidence. He has inspected a suitable place to live today. There is a kind of metal mine underground, which is enough to build a steel fortress. From the memories shared by Charles, Eric knew information about skeleton lizards and many monsters, but these monsters did not have special abilities except for their larger size. Eric is confident enough to deal with it, and tomorrow he will see the foundation cast. Charles also believed in Eric's ability, and at the same time planned to raise his vigilance, observe the situation outside, and prevent his compatriots from being attacked by monsters. The two are somewhat like the strict father and loving mother among mutants. Although there is no difference in philosophy, they both sincerely care about the big family of future mutants and are willing to give everything for it. Such a heart of Chi-Chung is something Han Xiaoqing can't do. He chose Skull Island, where mutants came, for selfish reasons. Although it was also to avoid conflicts between mutants and humans and ease the relationship between the two, the purpose was not pure. On the one hand, with the power of mutants, it will be convenient to do many things in the future. On the other hand, it is for the convenience of punching cards. Cultivate them, and when they become stronger, they can become rich. Han Xiaoqing's wishful thinking jingled, and he didn't think there was anything wrong with him. This is a win-win situation. With his interference, no matter how bad the future of mutants is, it cannot be worse than in Wolverine 3. After returning to the stronghold of the Yiwei tribe, King Kong sat on the ground and wanted to eat the food provided by the Yiwei tribe. Han Xiaoqing and Artoria had a round with Eric and the others. After dinner, the Red Devil, White Queen, Saber-Toothed Tiger and Black Tom returned to Las Vegas. Han Xiaoqing, Eric, Charles, Ruiwen and others gathered together to plan the issue of building a new home tomorrow. In this kind of matter, everyone is participating and putting forward various opinions. The proposal given by Han Xiaoqing is to build 3 walls, and the foundation and the surrounding structural theme are mainly made of metal. This coincides with Eric's thoughts. Because the skeleton lizard is a creature that can dig tunnels from the ground, if it is an ordinary building, it will not have much effect at all. And with metal as the main body, Eric can also use a magnetic field to turn it into a control fortress when necessary. There are many monsters on Skull Island. Not only the ground, but also the air must be protected from the attacks of the frightened vultures and flying monsters here on the wings of Icarus. Classroom, living area, entertainment area, training area, leisure area, experiment area. It is obviously a huge project to plan out one by one. Fortunately, mutants have extraordinary abilities, so it is much easier to do. The meeting dissipated, but the sleepiness of everyone was seldom. I just came to Skull Island, and the unfamiliar environment always makes people feel uncomfortable. What's more, there are many monsters and novelty things here. For the sake of safety, everyone lay on the floor in one place and took turns to watch the night. Han Xiaoqing found an open space, teleported back to the inner world of the earth, came to the temple of King Kong's ancestral land, and visited Godzilla. Godzilla fell asleep, and hadn't changed at all before Han Xiaoqing left. For Godzilla, there is no concept of time, and it is normal to sleep for thousands of years. That is to say, in recent years, humans often tell that Godzilla's activities have gradually become more frequent. Han Xiaoqing came to the head of President Brother and used the red of all beings to share Godzilla's ability. Atomic breath, G cells, absorbing radiation, atomic furnace in the body, super power. The big brother is the big brother, and he has more skills than others. After acquiring the ability of Brother Boss, Han Xiaoqing's strength increased sharply again, and he can be called the king of humanoid monsters. Godzilla will come, he will come, Godzilla will not be right, he will. However, Han Xiaoqing discovered that Godzilla had many old injuries and hadn't fully recovered, otherwise his strength would definitely not be so strong. After removing the red of all beings, Han Xiaoqing sent a telepathic voice transmission. "Brother, I'm back." Godzilla opened his eyelids, looked at Han Xiaoqing with huge and sharp eyes, sniffed his nose, smelled a familiar breath, got up immediately, and screamed to the sky. Ah! The huge sound waves are thorough and deafening, which shows that Brother Boss is not in a good mood. Roar! The roar shook the heavens and the earth, causing all the beasts in the inner world to bow their heads and dare not move rashly. The reason is that Godzilla smelled King Kong's breath from Han Xiaoqing. Where is he? Hearing Godzilla's voice, Han Xiaoqing understood, and said, "I found Skull Island, but now there is only one little King Kong on the island, and his parents and fellow clan are dead." Dead? How could he die? When Godzilla heard that the ancient King Kong had fallen, his eyes were a little downcast. He hasn't taken revenge yet, but the enemy is already dead, so who is he looking for to avenge his past? As for the little King Kong in Han Xiaoqing's mouth, Godzilla has his own arrogance and doesn't bother to embarrass a child. After the death of the ancient King Kong, Godzilla seemed to be in a slight decline due to the loneliness of the King Kong King and the invincible loneliness. Han Xiaoqing explained. Maybe he was old and died of old age, or he was besieged to death by skeleton lizards. Although the Titans have a long lifespan, Godzilla has lived the longest in terms of survival. From ancient times to the present, 150 million years is not something everyone can do, and if no accident, Godzilla can still live forever. Brother, do you want to visit Skull Island? I can give you the location. Now Liangzi has become my younger brother, and also the third brother of Big Brother. This time, I brought a gift for Big Brother. While speaking, Han Xiaoqing took out 2 Tsar bombs from the Chenkin ring and put them in front of Godzilla. Is it a human weapon? My brother has a heart. To some extent, Godzilla's wisdom is superior to that of humans, and he can tell at a glance that the nuclear bomb was made by humans. The elder brother is several times bigger than the pretty boy, and his appetite is astonishing. He ate the Tsar bomb in 3 or 2 bites. Although the nuclear bomb after the explosion is more effective for Godzilla, but this is the ancestral land of the King Kong family after all, it is a pity that it was blown up. Han Xiaoqing also plans to transform this place into a core area for mutants. When brother was full, Han Xiaoqing took out the summoning contract obtained by checking in at Xavier Manor. Brother, this is the summoning contract I obtained when I went out. It can establish mutual contact. When necessary, I can summon the other party to my side. This way, come on, if I find other evil Titan beasts outside, I can make Big Brother appear as soon as possible. You kid, you want me to let me fight in the present generation. Okay, if you encounter trouble in the future, just call me. Big Brother will help you settle it. The elder brother is generous, let Han Xiaoqing do what he wants, and sign the contract of summoning. The summoning contract is two-way. Han Xiaoqing can summon Godzilla, and Godzilla can also summon Han Xiaoqing. One person and one beast. Godzilla did not return to Skull Island with Han Xiaoqing. The ancient King Kong was dead, and his target of revenge was gone. For Godzilla, beating an underage King Kong did not give him any sense of accomplishment, so he might as well continue to sleep. Han Xiaoqing has a lot to do. Namor was killed by him, and the reaction of the Atlantis Empire is unclear, and if it is not dealt with in time, it may cause Atlantis to go to war with humans. Once such a situation occurs, the casualties are unimaginable. Among the rewards, Mara has not yet found the right time to claim them. So taking the time, Han Xiaoqing will go to Atlantis to fully realize the identity of Aquaman. At the same time, take Mara out and ask her to help manage Atlantis. In addition, construction work on the Skull Island base has to be done. The environment of Skull Island is unique. A small amount of radiation is helpful for the evolution of mutants. It is rich in resources and has natural storms as a barrier. After the base is built, the second step of the plan can be carried out. The development of the outside world cannot be left behind. Luther sneaked into Hydra as an undercover agent, which was Han Xiaoqing's idle move. Hydra later took almost complete control of S.H.I.E.L.D. This force should not be underestimated, and it can provide convenience for Han Xiaoqing's future check-in plan. Moreover, Luther is a genius scientist and inventor who can research all kinds of black technologies, so he might bring some surprises to Han Xiaoqing. As for Wu Shihao and Lei Luo of Shangjiang, they belong to small troubles. The plan Han Xiaoqing gave them was to give Shangjiang a peaceful and prosperous world. After Wu Shihao took control of all the gangster forces, he began to whitewash. Lei Luo was similar. When he took the position of Inspector General Hua, he set up the Independent Commission Against Corruption and an anti-corruption agency to completely eliminate the atmosphere of corruption. Coupled with the great help of the rock shaman Huiyan evil god, it is not very difficult. The only problem is the British attitude. This is not a big problem. Han Xiaoqing can pay a visit when he has time to convince others with virtue. However, there are priorities. Before dealing with this issue, Han Xiaoqing still has one important thing to do. That is to eliminate a big hidden danger, Apocalypse. Apocalypse is the villain in X-Men, Apocalypse. He was born in Egypt. His real name is Nsaba Nur. He is a person with multiple abilities. Possess super strength, super stamina, flight, control elements, body molecules, and more. It is even possible to transfer one's consciousness to a new body through special rituals, and acquire the talents of this body. Over the long years, Tianqi's ability has gradually improved, tending to the 5th level of omniscience and omnipotence, with proper strength. Intuitively, it is the Heavenly Father level, a powerful existence not inferior to Odin. Apocalypse is an ambitious person, and because of the extreme anti-killing of humans thousands of years ago, Apocalypse hates humans. If he is resurrected, it will not be good for humans or even mutants. To some extent, Tianqi is a tyrant, and death is not a pity. According to the original plot, Apocalypse was in 1983. Because Mora followed the mysterious organization, he inadvertently opened the shade cloth, causing sunlight to shine into the cave, which made Apocalypse complete the final reincarnation ceremony and resurrect. 20 years from now. But since Han Xiaoqing knew about the hidden danger of Tianqi, it was impossible to foolishly wait for Tianqi to comply. What's more, the current situation has changed. Who knows if Tianqi will be resurrected early due to unexpected reasons. Wouldn't it be nice to go there earlier and kill Tianqi once and for all? Han Xiaoqing teleported to Cairo overnight, controlled the rats and underground animals in the whole city through the red of all beings, and soon sensed the place where Apocalypse was buried. With a thought, Han Xiaoqing appeared underground. This place was originally a magnificent pyramid. Before 3000 AD, in order to resist the brutal rule of the apocalypse, human beings set up a trap when building this pyramid. The reincarnation ceremony that led to Tianqi failed and was buried underground. Looking at the weather under the pile of stones in front of him, Han Xiaoqing waved his hand to lift the pile of stones, and raised his foot to step on Tianqi's forehead. Ding! The host is currently on top of Tianqi's head and meets the check-in conditions. Do you want to check in? Punch the card. Hearing the system prompt, Han Xiaoqing chose to check in without hesitation. Punching in, counting down for 10 seconds, 10, 9, 3, 2, 1, punching in successfully. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Zeus armor from the 600th world. Zeus armor. It is a weapon created by Zeus to fight against the dark gods and gather the power of the Greek gods. Anyone who wears it can gain the power of the Greek gods. The stronger the wearer's physical fitness, the more power he can exert. Do you want to receive it? Zeus armor is an artifact of the 600th world, much stronger than Neptune Trident, similar to the Marvel World Odin Collection Destroyer armor. I don't know who borrowed it from whom. Han Xiaoqing already has a golden battle suit, but it is completely incomparable with Zeus armor. Receive. After the words fell, a set of ancient Greek-style armor appeared in front of Han Xiaoqing. I don't know if it's the hobby of the Greek gods. The artifacts are all glittering with gold, but they do look much cooler than the golden battle suit, and Han Xiaoqing can feel the powerful power contained in it. It should be the so-called divine power. Speaking of Greek mythology, Han Xiaoqing discovered an interesting thing in Godzilla's memory when he used the red of all beings. In ancient times, there was an era when humans and gods coexisted in this world, and it was mainly divided into 4 major gods. Chinese gods, Greek gods, Norse gods and Egyptian gods. Yes, there used to be Greek gods in this world, but they are gone now. Because thousands of years ago, there was a Ragnarok. Thus ended the system of Greek mythology. The cause of the incident has to start with the battle between 2 waves of mortal soldiers on the sea not far from Mount Olympus. At that time, Godzilla had just settled the Yamata no Orochi of the island country, passing by the battlefield. The 2 groups of people who were fighting did not know what to do, not only did not run away, but instead attacked Godzilla in a frenzy. How can I get used to the stink of these people? The blade-like dorsal fin across the sea, the sturdy warship was easily cut off, and countless soldiers were swallowed by the huge waves wailing. This scene happened to be discovered by Hermes, the messenger of the Greek god. Hermes stepped on his flying boots and hurried to the kingdom of the gods, which was the holy place revered by mortals at that time, Mount Olympus. The top of the mountain is the pantheon, and the gods who rule the world and human beings live in this majestic temple. They all have unique skills and powerful mana. The love and worship of mortals turned into a steady stream of power of faith, growing their divine power. But with the passage of time, even the worship of the people cannot satisfy their spiritual greed. The gods became complacent and apathetic, no longer answering the prayers of mortals. The long and comfortable life made them all seem to be doing nothing, either posing or trying to play tricks on mortal wives. Hermes reported the situation of the humans in the lower world to the god King Zeus. But facing the suffering mortals, Zeus just laughed. The faces of the gods were also full of disdain and indifference. In the eyes of these gods, the lives of mortals are as insignificant as ants. Only the god of love, Aphrodite, still maintains a heart of compassion for human beings, defending human beings, and constantly begging Zeus to help suffering human beings. The queen of heaven, Hera, also came forward to persuade Zeus. But Zeus was dissatisfied because of the decrease in human faith over the years, and stubbornly and arrogantly refused to help human beings. The sympathetic Cupid is still trying to convince the god King Zeus. It's a pity that Zeus still does his own thing, supercilious. In fact, at that time mortals did start to dislike the idea of Zeus over everything. The main reason is that Zeus is too arrogant, doesn't take mortals seriously at all, and doesn't respond to prayers. Unilateral contributions cannot last long. Gods cannot protect mortals, and mortals will naturally not believe in gods. What's more, these gods often use various reasons to go down to other people's wives. They have no virtue at all, and they have long caused anger and resentment. If it weren't for being unable to defeat the gods, it is estimated that Zeus's ashes would have been lifted long ago. The unpopularity of the people made the Greek gods gain less and less faith, and their divine power began to decline. But they are still arrogant and arrogant. Only Poseidon, the LSP sea god, took the initiative to invite Ying in order to please the god of love, planning to go down to see the situation. But what he didn't know was how terrifying he was facing brother Boss. When Poseidon came to the messy battlefield, he saw only broken warships and cruel pictures. Even the sea god Poseidon was shocked. Boss slowly rises from the sea. When Poseidon sees Godzilla, who is as tall as a mountain, he has no fear. He steps on the waves and attacks Godzilla. But the figure of him wielding the trident is extremely small in front of Godzilla. The huge waves set off by Poseidon were also pale and weak, unable to hurt Godzilla at all. At this time, Godzilla is in the strongest state, gathering more than 100 million years of power, which is extremely terrifying. Poseidon fell into a bitter battle. After 500 rounds of the battle, not only did he fail to settle Godzilla, but gradually felt powerless. No matter what kind of move Poseidon uses, it's just gaudy in front of brother Boss. In the end, Godzilla used the atomic breath to engulf Poseidon, the god of the sea, with one blow, destroying both body and spirit. The enraged Godzilla churned on the sea and set off huge waves, like a world-ending flood, rushing towards Mount Olympus, and the cities along the way were instantly swallowed by the sea. When the gods noticed something was wrong and looked down from the temple, they saw that demon-like figure, which was the nightmare of the gods, the lifelong enemy of Zeus, Godzilla. Brother Zong came with lightning and floods, and the ferocious aura exuded from his body made even the high gods feel uneasy. Seeing that the enemy had already reached the door, Zeus swung his lightning spear and slashed at Godzilla. But it couldn't penetrate Brother Zong's hard skin like a wall of size. Seeing that the attack was ineffective, Zeus angrily questioned the other gods, who created this monster, and dared to invade the realm of the gods. The gods didn't know where Godzilla came from, and quickly dumped the blame on the dead Poseidon. Zeus was furious, but the top priority was how to solve the immediate trouble. Ares, the best war god, couldn't bear the desire to fight, and jumped down from the top of the mountain with a tomahawk in his hand, slashing at Godzilla with a majestic axe and shouting at the same time. "Die, monster, you dare to challenge the great god of war." God of war, is it amazing? After considering for 0.001 second, Godzilla opened his mouth and ejected an atomic breath. Ares, the god of war, was hit by the powerful atomic breath, and instantly turned into ashes, with both body and spirit destroyed. Decisive, free. The majestic god of war is still vulnerable in front of President Brother. Seeing Ares, the god of war, being instantly killed, Zeus was furious. Regardless of the dissuasion of his tribe, he immediately summoned his proud beast Hydra, trying to use the power of the monster to fight against the monster. Two mythical monsters wrestled violently together. In the interweaving of thunder and smoke, the same huge Hydra bit Godzilla's arm. But Godzilla's skin was really thick, and he reacted extremely quickly. He quickly bit Hydera's neck, and under the strong bite force, he turned his head and tore off Hydera's head. But Hydera's broken neck split here, and 2 heads quickly grew out. Godzilla's atomic breath exploded Hydera's 2 heads, but Hydera grew 4 more heads. Hydera is a monster shaped like a giant snake. It can continuously grow more heads, which is its signature stunt. The more you hit Hydera, the more heads will grow. It is no longer promoted. This is also the origin of the Hydra slogan. When the 2 behemoths were fighting, Zeus didn't talk about martial arts, and used lightning to attack from time to time, and assisted him from the sidelines. Godzilla, who was beaten out of anger, was so annoyed that he threw himself directly on Hydera, and his sharp claws were deeply embedded in Hydera's flesh and blood, pushing him fiercely towards Mount Olympus. Amidst the loud bang, the sturdy Olympus mountain couldn't resist this violent force, and the entire mountain collapsed, including the pantheon on the top of the mountain. All the gods of Olympus were buried by the holy mountain in an instant, and only Zeus climbed out of the ruins with his powerful divine power. The other Greek gods fell, and their divinity dissipated. The angry Zeus fought alone for the first time in his life. He sent a lightning spear to Godzilla, blasting a cloud of dazzling sparks, but still unable to cause fatal damage to Godzilla. Those humans who survived no longer considered Zeus to be their protector. Losing the support of the gods and the faith of mankind, Zeus had nothing left, so he let go and fought Godzilla to the death. Just when Zeus was about to be stepped on by Godzilla's big foot, Zeus released the divine power accumulated by thousands of years of mortal worship. Huge bolts of lightning came out of Zeus's body, gathered into a torrent of thunder, wrapped Godzilla layer by layer, and then sealed Godzilla deep into the ground. In the end, Zeus, the king of the gods, exhausted all his divine power, and turned into an ordinary, thin, ugly old man. In this way, the era belonging to the Greek gods came to an end. After falling from the altar, Zeus came to his full realization, dragging his withered body, walking in the world, hiding in human cities, experiencing the sufferings of mortals. It was a feeling of humbleness, of helplessness, of pain and sorrow. I don't know how many years have passed. Zeus came to settle in the ancient city of Pompeii. Zeus, who had experienced the sufferings of the world, regretted his life and swore in his heart that if he could recover his divine power one day, he would never let down mortals again. It's a pity that he was unlucky and couldn't wait for that day. Just when Zeus made up his mind to start a new life, Mount Vesuvius near Pompeii erupted without warning. Even Loki, the evil god who traveled through time and space to this time period, and Mobius, a staff member of the Space-Time Variation Administration, didn't know the truth about the volcanic eruption. Only Zeus knew what was going on. That is Godzilla, who was sealed by his exhausted divine power back then, and now broke through the seal, indirectly causing the dormant volcano to be activated. The moment the magma spewed out in an instant, the evil god Loki and Mobius used the instrument to escape from the city that was about to face the doomsday disaster. But Zeus had no escape and lost his divine power. He was just a bad old man who lived a long time, unable to do anything, and there was no time to do anything. Godzilla roared and emerged from the crater, and the dazzling atomic breath illuminated the entire sky. Thick smoke covering the sky and hot lava spewed out, flooding the entire city in an instant. A generation of god kings died in the high temperature and suffocation buried in volcanic ash without any face. Brother didn't kill Zeus on purpose. Who would have thought that a generation of god kings would be such rubbish? It cannot be said that Zeus is weak, it is really that Godzilla was too strong back then. And the seal of Zeus still exists, which is why Godzilla's strength is far worse than before. No wonder Godzilla was able to defeat King Ghidorah more than 100 million years ago, but in Godzilla, king of the monsters, he fell into a disadvantage. You must know that King Ghidorah has been frozen in the Antarctic, but Godzilla has been absorbing abilities and evolving. Now combined with the fall of the Greek gods, it all makes sense. No wonder Atlantis now enshrines Godzilla, but rarely enshrines the god of the sea. It turns out that Poseidon, the god of the sea, was killed by the president long ago. A dead god is indeed not worth worshipping. What can Han Xiaoqing say? He can only say that he is indeed my elder brother. With a change of mind, it was only in an instant, and after wearing the Zeus armor on her body, Han Xiaoqing immediately felt the majestic divine power. Although they are all Greek gods, the setting of DC Universe is better than that of Marvel, so Zeus armor is very powerful, and Han Xiaoqing obtained the physique of the elder brother through the Red of All Being, which can perfectly play. The power of the Zeus armor allowed Han Xiaoqing to reach the level of a heavenly father in an instant. Even worse than that, at least much stronger than the old Odin. Without the purple sweet potato essence of infinite gems, Han Xiaoqing can easily teach him to be a man, full of confidence. Of course, the Heavenly Father level alone is still not enough in the Marvel world, and there are also the single universe level, the multi-universe level, the super universe level, and the omnipotent universe level. The higher you go, the bigger the gap. Han Xiaoqing was able to jump from an ordinary person to a Heavenly Father level existence in just a few months, thanks to the check-in system, otherwise it would have been impossible. How to get higher achievements, this will be discussed later. Right now we should deal with Tianqi first. What Han Xiaoqing has to do is to kill the donkey. After checking in, Tianqi is useless to Han Xiaoqing, and it is a disaster to stay. Taking advantage of Tianqi not recovering, killing him, although the victory is not military, it is easy. Han Xiaoqing is not a fighting maniac, and he doesn't want to complicate simple things, so he naturally does it as easily as possible. As the energy accumulated, blue lightning flashed from Han Xiaoqing's body, and a majestic beam of light shot out from his mouth. It was Godzilla's signature skill, atomic breath. Tianqi's strength is good. If he fully recovers, even if he can't beat Han Xiaoqing, he can retreat unscathed. But now he is just a body that has not regained consciousness. In the most vulnerable period, there is no way to stop the big move of atomic breath. Although Tianqi's current body has its own self-healing factor, the self-healing factor also has a limit. In an instant, Tianqi was wiped out. Worried about it, Han Xiaoqing added 2 more atomic breaths, making sure that Tianqi was completely dead, with no bones or scum left before leaving with confidence. After solving the apocalypse, Han Xiaoqing eliminated a hidden danger, but the movement caused by the atomic breath was not small, causing a slight earthquake in Cairo. Fortunately, it came and went quickly, and did not cause too serious casualties and economic losses. Compared with the construction of pyramids built by Apocalypse in the future, Magneto almost turned modern society into a primitive society, and this loss is completely negligible. But others don't think so. Not everyone has God vision like Han Xiaoqing. A person's gaze is usually determined by his height. From the point of view of those who are interested, this is an attack by mutants. Although Han Xiaoqing is not a mutant, some people don't want you to think, but me. Once people decide on something, they may become stubborn. For example, William Stryker, the son of Stryker, a senior agent of the CIA, has just graduated and joined the army. In the Pentagon before, Han Xiaoqing made a strong move and asked the congressman to give an explanation. Among the 8 people who died, there was Stryker. The revenge of killing his father made William Stryker hate mutants. He himself has a good talent, and now he is working with Bolivar Trask, and under his influence, he is more determined to fight against mutants. Bolivar Trask is the founder of Trask Industries. He is 36 years old now. Although he is short and unattractive, he is a far-sighted scientist. When he was studying the mysteries of human DNA, he discovered the X gene. He believes that mutants are a threat to humans, so he wants to create a sentinel robot with the intention of destroying all mutants to ensure the status of human beings. In the secret base in North America, William Stryker put forward his opinion to Bolivar Trask. According to the doctor, the sentinel robot needs Mystique's gene to achieve the desired effect, but now we have lost the magician's gene. The trace of the Shape Girl, and Magneto has the ability to control the magnetic field, and the robot made of steel is a pile of scrap iron in front of him. William, I understand your feelings. I hate mutants as much as you do, but science is supposed to be advanced step by step, and everything has to be taken the first step. The Sentinel robot appeared to deal with other mutants. Otherwise, relying on ordinary weapons, even the army may suffer a lot of losses. It is our duty to protect human beings. You must understand this. Although Bolivar Trask is short, he has a high ideological consciousness. His starting point is to protect human beings, and the second is to eliminate mutants. At least Bolivar is not so extreme now. William Stryker understood that Dr. Bolivar was right, but when he thought of his dead father, he couldn't suppress his hatred. I understand the doctor, but we can try to start from another direction and use mutants to deal with mutants. Stryker didn't miss any chance to eliminate the mutants, expressing his own opinion. Bolivar nodded upon hearing this. This is also a direction, tell me what you think. My idea is to try to capture some mutants, fuse their X genes, create an ultimate mutant weapon, and use mutants to kill mutants. I named it the X-Weapon Project. Non-toxic and non-husband, Stryker would do anything to get revenge. He also knows how powerful mutants are, but not all mutants are invulnerable. He can't beat powerful mutants such as Magneto and Neptune, but he can catch some small mutants who have just awakened their abilities for experiments. Abduction, deception, drugging, sneak attack, trap. As long as the thinking is not slippery, there are always more solutions than difficulties. I agree with your plan, but do it cleanly. Those mutants are very capable. If they find out and take revenge, we won't have a second chance. Bolivar's position is very clear. What he wants to prove is that humans are better than mutants, and at the same time will spare no effort to eliminate mutants. Even if it is a mutant child who has just awakened, he will not show mercy. In his view, mutants are monsters, and they are not the same species as humans, so they should be treated differently. In his secret laboratory, some mutants are kept as test subjects. Humanity is for people. Are mutants still human? Mutants, at least in Bolivar's view, were not worthy of being human. Seeing that Bolivar agreed to his X-Weapon plan, Stryker was impatient to take action. The first thing he thought of was the undead veteran Logan. During his service, he had worked with Logan and Victor, and he knew that Logan was a mutant with strong abilities and could not be killed no matter what. He was an ideal candidate for Weapon X. Although Logan once saved his life, who made Logan a mutant? As for Victor, that is, the saber-toothed tiger, he is now in the Hellfire Club, and Stryker will not act rashly if he is not sure. At the same time, on Skull Island, the construction of the base is in full swing. In the selected area, the returning Han Xiaoqing took the lead, using gravity, raising his hand, as if casting, Earth Explosion Star, sucking up large pieces of soil and rocks, forming a huge sphere in midair. A huge pothole was left in the ground. Han Xiaoqing put the sphere made of accumulated soil and rocks into the distant ocean to form a smaller island. Then it was the turn of Magneto King Eric to perform. I saw Eric flying in midair, surrounded by a powerful magnetic field. Countless metal substances were extracted by him from the earth and the ocean, and then gathered together and fused into a super hard alloy, to create a strong and durable foundation and main frame. The internal hard facilities have all exceeded the existing nuclear defense level. Rui Wen, Sean, Alex, Red Tank and others also performed their duties. Some added bricks and tiles, some organized equipment, moved equipment, some went hunting, or were responsible for defense work. Charles is not a combatant. His physical strength is comparable to that of ordinary people, and he is mainly equivalent to a messenger and an inspector. It is quite a lot of work to make it convenient for others to communicate and to prevent sudden attacks by monsters. There are many people in strength, and the efficiency of the mutants is also very high. In just half a day, the main body of a steel castle has been completed. Even the skeleton lizard can only sigh in awe when facing such a steel wall covered in steel thorns. Liangzi was not idle either. Before returning, Han Xiaoqing brought him a battle axe made from the dorsal fin of ancient Godzilla. Because Liangzi at this time is not fully developed, his body is not as tall as the tomahawk, but with his super strength, it is more than enough to lift the tomahawk. Chapter 71. With the epic battle axe gifted by Han Xiaoqing in friendship, Liangzi's force value has skyrocketed. It may not be enough to compare with Brother Boss, but to deal with other monsters on Skull Island, it is definitely a one-shot takeaway, absolutely unambiguous. Roar. In the wilderness, Liangzi was holding a tomahawk in one hand and beating his chest with the other. Quite a look, with an axe in hand. I have the aura that I have in the world. After screaming up to the sky, Liang Zai picked up his axe and chopped down several big trees, then cleaned the branches, leaving the trunk, and dragged the thick trees to the new base of the X-Men to provide high-quality wood for the base. It can be regarded as a glorious worker beast. Pretty Boy gets along pretty well with mutants now. Especially Charles, who has telepathy, often chats with Liang Zai. Among all the people, he is the second person recognized by Liang Zai. This is the advantage of mastering more diplomatic languages. Today's base has been roughly built, and the missing modern items, daily necessities, and various necessary materials have been teleported from the city by the Red Devil and Ruiwan. Yesterday Raven and Alex went out and took Alex's family to Skull Island. Because of their special identities or unfortunate encounters, most of the mutants are lonely. For example, Mystique was forced to separate from her parents when she was very young. Darwin and Salvador were abandoned by their parents, and Sean the Siren, Hank the Beast and Alex the Ravager lived with their families. Sean is relatively withdrawn, and his relationship with his family is not good, and his parents are ordinary people, so he did not choose to come to Skull Island. Hank has no human appearance now, and he dare not go home to see his parents. Alex is different. His two younger brothers have the X gene. Although they haven't awakened yet, they are both mutants. To learn, we must start from the dolls. Bringing them to live on Skull Island earlier will also help them master their abilities as soon as possible. In fact, apart from the mutants, Han Xiaoqing and Charles also discussed that they could adopt some helpless orphans. On the one hand, it helps poor children and gives them a good living environment, while increasing the popularity of Skull Island. On the other hand, having mutant and normal children grow up together helps keep the two races in harmony. Of course, these are all things to say, at least until Eric builds the brainwave enhancement device before it can be effectively implemented. As long as the brainwave enhancement device is built, Charles can use his powerful telepathy ability to link to most parts of the world, which is very convenient for searching for mutants outside or for intelligence. In the blink of an eye, 3 days have passed, and with the concerted efforts of everyone, all the facilities and living facilities of the base have been fully implemented. The White Queen's financial resources are still very strong. After Sebastian Shaw's death, Eric took over the position of the Black Emperor. Although it brought some vicious effects, the size of the Hellfire Club remained the same, and it could even be said to be even larger. And if necessary, Eric can also extract gold and various rare metals from the earth. If Eric wanted to, he could discover all kinds of mineral veins in minutes, and it shouldn't be too easy to make money. This may be one of the reasons why mutants are so annoying. After all, things that ordinary people can't ask for, but for mutants, they are easy to get, how can they not be envious? With money, many things become easier. It doesn't matter what you want, as long as the outside world can buy it. It can be said that what the outside world has, Skull Island can have. While there are Skull Island, the outside world does not necessarily have them. If you have to talk about things on Earth, Skull Island is still lacking, except for those extraordinary items, that is, the technology of Atlantis and the vibrating gold of Wakanda. Atlantis will be in Han Xiaoqing's pocket sooner or later. As for Zhenjin, after so many years in Wakanda, it was a waste of money. In all fairness, Han Xiaoqing doesn't think Wakanda is worthy of Zhenjin. From the perspective of all mankind, Wakanda is not only selfish, but also extremely stupid. Holding the best resources on the planet, most of the soldiers are still fighting with cold weapons. If it weren't for some high-tech support, Han Xiaoqing wondered if these people secretly hid when all human beings evolved. When the work in hand is finished, Han Xiaoqing plans to go to Wakanda to recover the vibration gold. You say that he robs and plunders. Reasonable use of resources is also good. Anyway, Zhenjin Han Xiaoqing is going to be settled, and Jesus can't keep it. Right now, the most important thing is to improve the various facilities on Skull Island, since Zhenjin won't run away anyway. I'm back. Arturia in military uniform returns from hunting. At this time, Arturia was wearing a night outfit and riding a 20-meter-long holy tiger king. It was the big tiger that had been with Han Xiaoqing in the inner earth for a while. When he was free the day before yesterday, Han Xiaoqing teleported to the inner world to find it, and brought it to Skull Island. It is relatively safe here, and there is plenty of food on the island. Moreover, there are also holy tigers on Skull Island, and there is also an adult male holy tiger king. The two big tigers are just a pair, and maybe they can give birth to a litter of tiger cubs next year. Thanks for your hard work. Han Xiaoqing stepped forward to take a look, and found that the prey Arturia had brought was an adult Tyrannosaurus Rex, enough to feed the people at the base. Don't be afraid that you can't finish eating, because there are Evie and pretty boys. Some time ago, Han Xiaoqing and the others were taken care of by the Awei tribe, and it was normal for them to send some food in return. Liangzai is an omnivore, and he doesn't mind meat or vegetables. Although Tyrannosaurus rex is not as rich in energy as nuclear bombs, it is also a good food for Liangzai. And Liangzai also likes to eat the dragon tongue of Tyrannosaurus rex. Fortunately, Liangzai knows how to restrain himself, otherwise there will be no Tyrannosaurus rex on Skull Island. It was Han Xiaoqing's first time eating Tyrannosaurus rex meat. It turned out that the Tyrannosaurus rex meat was not as delicious as expected. The meat of the tail and dragon tongue was relatively tender, while the meat of other parts was relatively old and chewy, suitable for stewing. Fortunately, the White Queen provided a lot of fine wine and high-end ingredients. Red wine paired with dragon meat is another unpretentious day. Skull Island is thriving here, and it changes every day. The outside world is turbulent, not calm. Many people began to secretly study and pay attention to mutants and giant titans. Among them, the scientific research team headed by the Emperor organization has received a lot of funds, and the team has grown stronger, and began to search for traces of the titans around the world. The United States and the Soviet Union increased their attention to mutants, and at the same time tried to create super soldiers. The original and suspended super soldier serum was put on the agenda again, and the development of weapons was increased at the same time. Under the seemingly peaceful surface, undercurrents are surging. This is an era in which if you don't advance, you will retreat. If you fall behind, you are doomed to be beaten. At the same time, because of the butterfly effect brought by Han Xiaoqing, the branch of the timeline has almost reached its peak. The Time Variation Authority (TVA) is a special agency dedicated to overseeing, adjusting, and ultimately balancing the vast number of timelines in the multiverse of infinite variables. Usually if you don't solve the problem, you will solve the person who caused the problem. However, due to special reasons, the three Guardians of Time did not dare to touch Han Xiaoqing, so they could only ask their subordinates to try their best to remedy it. It can also be regarded as the plot correction power of the Marvel world. However, Han Xiaoqing's actions became bigger and bigger every time, and destruction was often easier than construction. Han Xiaoqing kept making troubles, and the three Guardians of Time followed behind. If the leader opens his mouth, the people below will lose their legs. Originally, as employees of the Time Variation Administration, their main task was to catch time criminals. Such time criminals are usually tricky after all, but they belong to a very small number, so these employees are relatively free. But since Han Xiaoqing appeared, they have changed from the original 9 to 5 to the inhumane 007 system, checking for gaps and making up for gaps around the clock, and they are extremely busy. If it hadn't been restarted every 3 to 5 times, even if the employees of the Time Variation Administration were not crazy, they would have to find Han Xiaoqing, the culprit, desperately. But everything is worth it. Some are unlucky and some are lucky. After the Cuban incident, the timeline was disturbed even more, so that the survivors of the Titanic were no longer targeted by the Time Variation Authority. The Death Project was also terminated. It is equivalent to Han Xiaoqing saving the lives of Ruth and Jack in disguise. You must know that some time ago, the people of the Time Variation Administration executed the Reaper plan, and they were crazy. Because of Han Xiaoqing's unintentional actions, more than 1,500 people who should have died on the Titanic survived, which changed the original trajectory of fate and caused many timeline branches. In order to protect the sacred timeline, the employees of the Time Variation Administration began to use instruments that can control time, and tried their best to design various coincidences to clean up these people who should have died. It is to reduce the unstable factors led by the butterfly effect, and to maintain the sacred timeline without interference. But outsiders don't know what the timeline is, they just see accidents again and again. Especially those survivors who survived on the Titanic have become frightened birds. The deaths of these people vary. Some were hit and killed by a car while walking, some stepped on a banana peel and fell to death when they went down the stairs, some were crushed to death by falling signboards, some were burned to death at home, some were shot to death by police guns, and some camping in the wild was attacked by wild beasts, which can be called a complete book of deaths over tricks. Moreover, these deaths seem to be accidental deaths, with no human traces at all. It's frightening to think about. You must know that the people who survived on the Titanic, except for the low-level laborers and Jack who accidentally boarded the ship, are all rich and famous. If it's just 1 or 2 cases of accidental death, it can be called a coincidence. But in the last few months, there have been thousands of accidents, all of which were survivors on the Titanic, but anyone with a little brain will find something abnormal. During this time, both Ruth and Jack heard the wind and encountered several accidents. Fortunately, the lives of the two were relatively hard, but there is no danger. But Ruth's original fiancé, Carl, was not so lucky. Ever since Jack took his love away, Carl has held a grudge and has been looking for trouble with Jack. But because Jack and Ruth joined the Emperor organization, they temporarily swallowed their anger. However, with the implementation of the Reaper plan of the Time Variation Administration, more and more people died unexpectedly, and sometimes people around them were affected. Therefore, the former survivors became fools in the eyes of others. Considering the interests and being responsible for the Emperor's organization, Dr. Landa waved his hand and copied Jack and Ruth. Anyway, the Emperor organization is now in full swing, and there is no shortage of two amateurs. The world of capital is so cruel. Carl was overjoyed when he received the news, and he led a group of people non-stop to teach Jack a lesson, letting him know what is dangerous in society. Who would have thought that a cat would fall from the 16th floor and land on Carl's head as soon as he saw Ruth and Jack in despair? B.I.G. Sound. The cat that caused the accident escaped after the incident, but there was nothing wrong with it, but Carl was smashed with a broken cervical spine, and his life was hanging by a thread. The sudden scene caught both Jack and Ruth by surprise. A group of men brought by Carl were in a hurry and called for an ambulance. An ambulance arrived quickly, and Carl, who was seriously injured and unconscious, was put on a stretcher. But when getting into the car, the doctor who was carrying the stretcher in front was uneasy. He didn't notice that his elbow touched the hook on the car, his arm went numb, and the stretcher fell out of his hand. Crack! Carl hit the ground on the back of his head. He was still breathing, but he was tossed like this. It was a suffocation to die. Carl's death is a good thing for Jack. But Jack was not happy. Because they don't know if they will be the next one. In the time that followed, Ruth and Jack lived in the shadow of death, terrified all day long. On the other hand, after being expelled from the Emperor organization, the two lost their source of income. Because of her elopement with Jack, Ruth has lost contact with her family. Jack is a down-and-out painter who fears every day, so he has no time to paint. Without a source of income, the two lived a life of starvation and 5 meals for 3 days. They were not in the mood for romance at all, and they couldn't be romantic. Jack is okay, he is a poor boy himself, and his life is not rich, so he can suffer. Ruth is different. She was originally a lady from a rich family. She was spoiled since she was a child. At the beginning, Ruth still felt that this kind of life was a bit different, but after a long time, her physical discomfort gradually caused her psychological discomfort. Sweet talk. No matter how touching the pledge of eternal love, it can't be eaten as food. Under the pressure of life and death, men and women who were originally passionately in love began to have constant conflicts, and their sensitive nerves would be triggered for even trivial matters. When you love someone, you feel elegant when the other person picks their noses. When you start to hate the other person, it is wrong for the other person to breathe. Life is not only poems and distant places, but also daily necessities, food, housing and transportation. Love is full of magical powers, and it can make people in love give up their lives and let go of everything. But love will disappear. True love may not be defeated by swords and axes, but it will be gradually worn away by the trivial matters of life. People are sometimes overwhelmed by love, like moths to a flame, throwing themselves into it desperately. But how long can people's enthusiasm last? After the Time Variation Administration revoked the Death Project, Ruth and Jack survived fortunately, but their love has already reached the camera. The shadow of unexplained accidental death will also accompany them throughout their lives. It's a blessing or a curse, it's hard to tell. The changing situation outside did not affect the calm of Skull Island. Han Xiaoqing and Arturia strolled slowly on the island, and found a handsome boy who was once again strong in a plain area with a wide view. Since absorbing the nuclear fuel of the Tsar bomb, Liangzi seems to have taken hormones. Now he is 32 meters tall, and his physique has become more and more burly and majestic. Hula. At this time, the pretty boy is wielding a battle axe that is a head taller than him. Every move, looks good, the axe blows wind, the airflow brought up, Yes, the wind howls, and ordinary people approaching probably will be blown up by the air waves fly. Xiaoqing, I never imagined that pretty boys can also practice martial arts. Looking at the handsome boy who is concentrating on cultivation, Arturia only feels that the world is so big, and there are really many wonders. Han Xiaoqing smiled and said, I just said it casually at the beginning. I never thought that pretty boy could really cultivate domineering junqi, so I slightly modified the halberd technique to the axe technique and taught him. It is very simple for Han Xiaoqing to pass on the exercises. The practice method of the exercises is to copy a copy, and use the blue hand of Shuangquan hands to pour it directly into the target, and then the memory can be passed on. Originally, I just wanted to give it a try, but I didn't expect Liang Zai to really be able to practice Overlord True Qi, and he developed a sense of Qi in a short period of time. His talent is much stronger than Wu Shihao and the others. According to Liangzi's current resting speed, it might not be long before he can release his true energy and shatter the darkness with the power of thunder, just around the corner. Han Xiaoqing also tried to pass the Yi Jin Jing to Liang Zai, but it may be because of their compatibility. This may be related to Liangzi's physique, and Han Xiaoqing is not very clear about the specific reason. But even so, as long as Liangzi's Overlord True Qi is successful, his strength will undergo earth-shaking changes. At least dealing with skeleton lizards is a piece of cake. Maybe when the handsome boy becomes an adult, he will really be able to compete with the elder brother. After watching pretty boy playing with an axe for a while, Han Xiaoqing and Arturia continued to walk and came to the farming area of the base. Master, Saber 1. At this time, Sean, Alex and others in the field greeted Han Xiaoqing. The red tank was running forward with a plowshare tied to its body, and it was on a rampage all the way. Darwin stepped on the plowshare to control the direction. Charles was on the sidelines instructing the Away people to use the seeds brought back by Ruiwen to cultivate the plowed land. The oxygen content of the air on Skull Island is several times that of the outside, and it also has unique radiation. It is like spring all year round and is suitable for farming crops. Although these things can be purchased directly from the outside world, growing them yourself is another experience. Mutants shouldn't be allowed to be too idle. Once they are idle, they tend to think wildly. The Aiwei people also joined the ranks of planting. People always want to make progress. Their living conditions are very difficult. Now that someone leads them to make a fortune, they are naturally willing to make progress. Moreover, mutants have different abilities. In the eyes of the Eevees, they are gods outside the sky, so they respect them very much. As for Junping Yiguang and Hank, the two veteran pilots during World War II, they were arguing to leave Skull Island some time ago, but the good old Charles erased the memory of Skull Island and asked Ruiwen to send them away. Leaving Skull Island is the wish of the two of them. Everyone has their own aspirations, and Charles will not force them. Erasing the memory of Skull Island was proposed by Han Xiaoqing. Although he is not afraid of others stealing Skull Island, he doesn't like trouble, and one thing more is worse than one thing less. Today's Skull Island is thriving, and everyone can find a suitable location. The Yus have not only received shelter, but also obtained better living conditions, which is a win-win situation. The afternoon was spent leisurely. Han Xiaoqing and Arturia came to the newly built school on the second floor of the base. All kinds of equipment here are complete. In addition to ordinary classrooms, there are also music rooms, gymnasiums, libraries, student restaurants, etc. Everything is available. Only students and teachers are missing, but there will be in the future. This is a school. In the future, many mutant and human children will go to school here. When they finish their studies, they can live on Skull Island, the Earth's core world, or go to the outside world to develop. Han Xiaoqing explained the purpose of the school to Arturia, and at the same time looked forward to the future, thinking that being a principal would be pretty good. Teaching kids. Sounds great, can I be a teacher? Arturia took some interest, which was a new experience for her. Of course, a compulsory course for knights will be set up at that time. Leah, you can teach them chivalry and various skills, morality, intelligence, physique, beauty and labor, so as to develop in an all-round way. Teaching students the subjects required for knighthood increases unity and loyalty. Although Han Xiaoqing doesn't expect all future students to be loyal, at least he can't teach a group of white-eyed wolves. Arturia looked at the classrooms. These classrooms are exactly the same. The classrooms are all the same. There are no students yet. When the students arrive, the bulletin boards of each class, the marks on the tables and chairs, etc. will be different. Han Xiaoqing smiled, and at the same time recalled some interesting things he did when he was a child. It was indeed a carefree and happy time, but it's a pity that people are no longer young, and when it passes, it really passes. Oh, that's right, Arturia said happily, and walked around the classroom. There are obviously no good-looking classrooms, but Arturia looks very happy. I don't know what attracted her. Leah, you seem to be very interested in school. Han Xiaoqing asked out the doubts in his heart. There's no big reason, I just think school life should be pretty good. It may be that Arturia originally lived in a time that was too cruel, but now she and her followers had wished to see a peaceful and prosperous world. Han Xiaoqing was slightly silent. Arturia was talking about school life, but it was only half realized so far. Because there are only buildings and various facilities here, but no students and teachers, it is not a daily campus life. After thinking about it, Han Xiaoqing promised, this day will not be too far away. Well, I believe you. Arturia said seriously. Okay, let's go see if Eric is done. After Han Xiaoqing finished speaking, he took Arturia to the base bunker, where Eric was building a brainwave enhancement room. This brainwave enhancement room is the second-generation version, designed by the genius scientist Beast Hank, and built by Magneto King Eric himself. It is specially used to strengthen the telepathy of Professor X Charles, so as to find mutants from the outside world. It is also a very powerful weapon. We have now reached the final stage. Under Eric's control, pieces of special metal plates were flying in midair and embedded in the circular field, seamlessly fitting together like a whole. The entire brainwave enhancement room is a circular room with a diameter of 100 meters, the inside is hollow, and there is only one passage at a height of 50 meters, extending from the entrance to the center. The brainwave enhancer built this time is several times larger than the one built by the CIA, and it is more complex and sophisticated. That is to say, Eric can control the metal, otherwise, if he wants to complete this workload, it cannot be achieved in a short time. Han Xiaoqing and Arturia stood in the aisle and watched for a while. Seeing that Eric had finished inlaying the last metal plate, Han Xiaoqing smiled and said, I'm done, go have a drink. It is good. Eric smiled brightly. Being able to do things for mutants, Eric can be said to be dedicated. Han Xiaoqing thought of the plot in X-Men, Apocalypse. Now that Apocalypse is dead, the plot will inevitably change. Eric and his future wife have not met. Should we remind him and let Eric find true love? Beast Hank checked the equipment and said, it's finally finished. There are no problems with the lines and facilities, and it can be put into use at any time. Hank can be regarded as the chief scientist in the base. He may be worse than Luther, but he is far smarter than most people, and he is a proper academic master. Most of the scientific research equipment in the base was manufactured or improved by Hank. Recently, he has been busy working on the brainwave enhancement room, and now that the work is completed, he is much more relaxed. Next, let's study the inhibitory serum. Making a silent decision in his heart, Hank followed Han Xiaoqing and the others out of the room. Although everyone didn't discriminate against Hank's appearance as a beast, Hank himself didn't like the image of turning into a blue-haired beast. Among other things, it's hard to find a girlfriend. Therefore, Hank is very obsessed with the research of inhibiting serum, and wants to restore the human appearance. In this regard, Han Xiaoqing is supportive. Mutants have different abilities, but most of the abilities of mutants have side effects, either they are born with different phases, or they cannot be controlled. Therefore, many mutants can no longer live a normal life after awakening. Just like the little rascal in X-Men, her ability is to absorb other people's memories, superpowers and vitality through skin contact. In an uncontrollable state, the little rascal can't get in close contact with people, otherwise, if he doesn't pay attention, he may kill others. Those mutants with mutated bodies are also having a hard time. In this society that looks at faces, it is really easy to be rejected by people who are ugly. In ancient times, some mutants might still be regarded as freaks, sons of demons and burned to death. Once Hank's suppressing serum research is successful, it will be very helpful for mutants to get along with humans. It can also be used against some evil mutants. Thinking of this, Han Xiaoqing looked at Eric beside him. What are you doing looking at me like that? Noticing that something was wrong with Han Xiaoqing's eyes, Eric felt baffled. It's okay, I just think you should find a partner, settle down in a home, and have more lovely children. Han Xiaoqing laughed. Eric is a person with clear grievances and grievances. He can be quite aggressive, and he is prone to slanting his sword. He regards mutants as brothers and sisters, but he is hostile to humans. He also acts in a high-profile manner. It's the kind of publicity type that can create as many scenes as possible, maybe because it has a strong desire to express. Possesses a certain charisma of a leader, but unfortunately, he is too reckless. In contrast, Charles is too meek, responsible, caring, kind-hearted, suitable for a good teacher, but not suitable for a leader. Otherwise, it will only teach a flock of sheep. Mutants are a powerful force, and the best among them, such as Scarlet Witch and Phoenix Girl, are extremely powerful, and Han Xiaoqing will win over them if they have the chance. Moreover, Magneto's genes are indeed better, and there will be no weaklings in the offspring, and they are Han Xiaoqing's ideal check-in targets. Eric was confused by Han Xiaoqing's nonsense. How could he let himself get married and have children? But thinking of having a family of his own, Eric was quite moved. He has been wandering for half his life, and has had relationships with many women. Maybe I'm free, I should go back and see them. Dinner time. Everyone gathered together, and after eating, Charles looked at Han Xiaoqing and hesitated to speak. Just say what you have to say, hold back and feel uncomfortable. Seeing Charles's appearance, Han Xiaoqing already guessed that Charles probably wanted to mention Mora. Sure enough, when Han Xiaoqing spoke, Charles still said what he had been holding back for a long time. In the matter of Mora, she was indeed at fault, but the situation was urgent at the time, and I believe she didn't really want to hurt Eric, so. You want me to save her? Han Xiaoqing looked at Eric. What do you think? Do you want to forgive her? Charles looked at Eric eagerly. His fiery eyes made Eric feel numb. It's all over, I don't take it to heart. That's fine. Eric, the client, had no objections, so Han Xiaoqing gave Charles a face. With a wave of his hand, a space ripple appeared, and the other end was the hospital room. Mora can't move now. Apart from being conscious, she is no different from a vegetative person, or even worse than a vegetative person. Han Xiaoqing used the red hands of Shuangquan hands to heal his injuries from a distance and then close the space channel. She's ready. Thanks. Upon hearing that Mora was fine, Charles quickly thanked her. At this moment, a cloud of red mist suddenly appeared, and the Red Devil teleported over. Master, a man named Luther called and asked you to report the situation by name. It is still 1962, subject to technological conditions, and there is no satellite phone yet. If Skull Island wants to know the information of the outside world, the fastest way is to pass it on by the Red Devil or Ruiwan. For Luther's subordinate, Han Xiaoqing still pays more attention to it. Although Luther doesn't have the superpowers of mutants, he is really good at thinking, and he is one of the best among DC villains. As soon as they heard that there was something wrong with the pile, they immediately returned to the Hellfire Club with the Red Devil. After a while, the Red Devil brought Luther to the secret room of the club to meet Han Xiaoqing through teleportation. Looking at Luther with fluttering long hair, Han Xiaoqing asked, "What's the rush to see me?" Luther smiled and said, "Boss, I have joined Hydra, and now I am the director of a laboratory, responsible for researching a drug that can enhance metabolic functions and all body functions, and develop the brain to the peak of human experience. Super Soldier Serum. Looks like Hydra takes you very seriously." Han Xiaoqing was not surprised that Luther was able to join Hydra and be reused. Luther is indeed a person with outstanding abilities. Although he is only in his 20s now, he is very knowledgeable. He has already obtained several doctorates, and he is also a doctorate in the 21st century of the 600th world. Although Luther did not control Kryptonian technology during this period, he still possessed knowledge decades ahead of this era. In addition to the troublesome personal identity issue, other hard conditions allow Luther to easily become a master. Now is the power of knowledge. However, Luther got the opportunity to get in touch with Super Soldier Serum so quickly. Han Xiaoqing was a little surprised. Super Soldier Serum was developed by the German scientist, Abraham Erskine, during World War II. A chemical solution. Formulated to strengthen the body and mind, This serum was used by the U.S. military during World War II. The most famous of these is Captain America. Germany also did research, but unfortunately the effect was not good, so a Red Skull was produced, and some Winter Soldier was produced later. When Captain America had just successfully injected Super Soldier Serum, Dr. Abraham Erskine was killed by spies, and the research results and documents were destroyed, which led to the stagnation of the United States' plan to manufacture super soldiers in large quantities. Later, under the operation of spies from various countries, some incomplete formulas of Super Soldier Serum were leaked, so some big countries are trying to restore Super Soldier Serum, and have also made some semi-finished products, but they all have strong side effects. It also includes the Hydra organization that cuts off one head and grows two heads. Over the years, Hydra has been reckless, has sneaked into all parts of the world to develop secretly, and has grown the organization quietly. Even the National Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Bureau has many Hydra people. Hydra is developing rapidly. Before the United States and the Soviet Union were encouraged to go to war, the top leaders of Hydra were fanning the wind and lighting will-o'-the-wisps. When Han Xiaoqing went to the Pentagon, Emma the White Queen discovered that the two senior counselors were members of Hydra, and Han Xiaoqing took special care of them and did not let them lead the way. And secretly let the White Queen control one of them, which is why Luthor was able to find and join Hydra in a short time. Some time ago, Luthor obtained legal status for himself, passed the test, and joined the Hydra organization. Because of his talent, and the fact that there are people above him, he soon got the opportunity to experiment with Super Soldier Serum. Then Luthor used his clever mind to overcome two technical problems in a short period of time, received special care, and was promoted to the Director of Scientific Research. It can be said that the current Luthor is flourishing in the Hydra organization. When Luthor mentioned Super Soldier Serum, Han Xiaoqing was a little interested, but not very much. The effect of Super Soldier Serum is really good for ordinary people. It can enhance body functions, make people smarter, and also prolong life. For example, the US team, the Winter Soldier, and the Black Widow were all injected with Super Soldier Serum, but such an improvement was negligible for Han Xiaoqing. However, Han Xiaoqing still asked Luthor to develop Super Soldier Serum. Even if he didn't need it, he could still use it for his subordinates. After all, not everyone has a check-in system that can quickly become stronger. This is the case in the Marvel world. The rich rely on technology, and the poor rely on mutation. You take this, and study it secretly when you have time to see if it is compatible with the Super Soldier Serum. After thinking about it, Han Xiaoqing took out a small bottle containing Ruiwen's blood, which was drawn after asking Ruiwen's opinion when Hank was researching suppressing serum. The X gene contained in Ruiwen's blood is extremely special and very inclusive. The Sentinel robot in X-Men, Days of Future Past gained the ability to copy and deform through Ruiwen's gene. If Luthor can develop a stable X gene, he can create a large army of mutants. Whether it is to resist alien invasion in the future, or to fight for interstellar hegemony, or to check in, it is a good choice. But before that, let Luthor study the X gene to see how compatible it is. If Super Soldier Serum is compatible with the X gene, then Han Xiaoqing can let Eric, Charles and others inject it to strengthen their abilities, and when the time comes to check in, there will be even greater gains. The two chatted for a while, and Han Xiaoqing used the ability of the Red of all beings to share a little power with Luthor. Talents are worth cultivating. Luthor's sneaking into the undercover Hydra is still dangerous. Not afraid of 10,000, just in case. Strengthen some of Luthor's powers to avoid accidents and regrets. After letting the Red Devil send Luthor away, Han Xiaoqing turned back to Skull Island. But he didn't return to the base immediately. Instead, he came to the beach. After jumping into the sea, he said silently in the ocean, "Receive Mela." A ray of light flashed from the void, and then transformed into a human form. She has fiery red hair like a flame in the water, and she wears dark blue near-tight scale armor, which tightly wraps her hot body. Exquisite face, perfect golden ratio, extremely hot figure, flowing eyes, with innocence and a trace of natural charm. When it comes to appearance, she may be slightly inferior to Artoria, but her figure is really predictable. Quiet as a virgin, indifferent and elegant, but moving like a beautiful snake is charming and enchanting. Meet the adults. Mera was swimming in the sea, circling around Han Xiaoqing like a mermaid. The received characters all have full affection for Han Xiaoqing, and there is no need to doubt their loyalty. At present, Mara has not become the queen of the sea, but is still the princess of Zebel. She ran away from home because she was unwilling to marry the Sea Lord King Aum because of her political marriage. Then he was forcibly summoned to this world. But Mela didn't feel any dissatisfaction in her heart. Instead, she respected Han Xiaoqing very much. Mira, this weapon is yours. Han Xiaoqing took out Namor's trident from the Chenkin ring and handed it to Mara. One trident is enough, others are not suitable. Now that Mara has appeared, it is perfect to give it to her. Trident, I deserve it. I don't know what I can do for my lord. Seeing the glittering golden trident, Mara was very moved, but she didn't offend at all, but seemed a little embarrassed. You take what I gave you. Only by improving your strength can you do things for me better. Han Xiaoqing handed the trident to Mara. Mara's strength is good. Her physique may not be as strong as the king of the sea, but she is far superior to ordinary people. At least in terms of strength, she is far superior to superheroes like Black Widow and Hawkeye, and she has the ability to control water. After obtaining the trident, the strength can be greatly improved, and among the Earth-level superheroes, it can be regarded as the upper-level combat power. After getting the trident, Mara went ashore with Han Xiaoqing and came to the base like a tiger with wings added. Master, who is this beautiful lady? Seeing Mara following behind Han Xiaoqing, Charles asked, his eyes sweeping over the trident, thoughtful. After the First World War in Cuba, there was no news of Namor. Now that Namor's trident appeared in the hands of a strange woman, it seemed that Namor was probably in danger. Regarding Namor's life and death, Charles was only slightly moved. After all, the two met each other and were not familiar with each other. Mira, the people of Atlantis, this time I am here to ask the Sea King to return to Atlantis to preside over the overall situation. Mara said the lines that were good with Han Xiaoqing. Artoria looked at Mela standing beside Han Xiaoqing, feeling a little angry for no reason in her heart, snorted coldly, turned her head to one side, the dull hair on her head curled up. It could be seen that her heart was not peaceful. Atlantis, the legendary kingdom that sank into the ocean, really exists. Eric didn't notice Artoria's abnormality, looked at Han Xiaoqing and said with a smile, Master, I didn't expect that you were really the king of the sea. Should we salute? Han Xiaoqing waved his hand. Don't be fooled, who is not a king these days? Namor is dead, and now Atlantis has no leader. Something happened. I have to go back and have a look. The matter of Skull Island, I will leave it to you. You guys. Hearing this, Alex said half jokingly and half seriously, Master, or Your Highness Aquaman, can I follow you to visit Atlantis? Salvador, Hank and others also looked yearning. Han Xiaoqing shook his head slightly. I'm afraid not. Atlantis is located in the deep sea, where it is in a state of heavy pressure and low temperature. There is no special protective device, and ordinary people cannot withstand the high pressure and the environment of the seabed. A sea boat will come to pick you up for sightseeing. Speaking of this, Han Xiaoqing looked at Ruiwen and Darwin. You have the ability to survive the fittest, but you can adapt to the deep sea environment. If you are interested, you can go with us. Can it be? Great. Ruiwen is very happy. Her character is jumpy, and she is still very curious about the legendary Atlantis. As for Darwin, after he was rescued by Han Xiaoqing, he was determined, and he would not hesitate to help if he could help. The red tank can actually survive in the deep sea, but Han Xiaoqing gave him the order to guard the base. What about me? Artoria looked at Han Xiaoqing eagerly. Stepped forward and patted Arturia on the shoulder. Han Xiaoqing said, I won't take you with this operation. In the deep sea, your ability is not good enough, so you will stay in the base and be responsible for everyone's safety. Then be careful yourself. Knowing Han Xiaoqing's strength, Arturia was not worried about Han Xiaoqing's safety, and looked at Mela with hostility. Mela froze for a moment, then looked at Artoria. Sparks seemed to fly in the air. It's not too late, then we're leaving. Sensing that the atmosphere was not right, Han Xiaoqing immediately used mind teleportation to start the space teleportation, and waited for Mela, Darwin and Ruiwen to leave together. The matter of Atlantis has been dragged on for a long time. If it continues to be delayed, unpredictable changes may occur, which may lead to war between Atlantis and the land. With the technology of Atlantis, in a real fight, it only needs to create a tsunami to form a devastating natural disaster and engulf many coastal countries. That is not the result Han Xiaoqing wants to see. Moreover, he regards himself as the king of the sea to the outside world, and his reputation is somewhat unfair. After taking control of Atlantis, who can say that he, the Sea King, is not worthy of his name? With the activation of mind teleportation, Han Xiaoqing, Mara, Darwin, and Ruiwen appeared on the sea directly above the Atlantis monument in a blink of an eye. They didn't teleport directly to Atlantis because they were afraid that Darwin and Ruiwen wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure of instantly becoming stronger. In fact, Han Xiaoqing can completely activate the anti-gravity force field, envelop a few people, and prevent them from being under heavy pressure, but the reason why Han Xiaoqing brought Ruiwen and Darwin here is to exercise their abilities. Comprehensive care is not conducive to the growth of the two of them. The four dived into the sea, and Darwin soon developed gills, which allowed him to breathe freely underwater. Ruiwen took Mara's hand, and in a blink of an eye she became exactly like Mara, except that she lacked the trident. How did you do it? Mela was surprised to see Ruiwen, who was exactly like herself. The Atlanteans in the 600th world look no different from humans, especially Zebel's royal family, but their physique is far superior to that of humans. They have the ability to breathe underwater, and very few can control some special abilities. Can you talk underwater? Raven heard Mela's voice and instinctively spoke, but she also found that she could speak in the water. That is to say, Darwin imitated fish and could only spit bubbles. Perhaps after staying longer, he could also evolve the ability to speak underwater. This is the ability of the Atlanteans. Mela and Ruiwen explained some things about Atlantis. Although DC and Marvel's Atlantis are different, there are still some similarities that outsiders don't know at all. One dares to speak, the other dares to believe. Han Xiaoqing didn't say anything about it. Ruiwen's strength has now improved and she is the fastest among the mutants. After successively simulating the superpowers of the Red Devil and Darwin, and now gaining Mara's physique and water control ability, in a real fight, Charles and Eric may not be Raven's opponents. If Han Xiaoqing hadn't told Ruiwen to restrain herself, she would have to imitate all the mutants in the base. However, the result of this may be that Ruiwen could not bear multiple X genes, causing her body to collapse. After all, both Charles and Eric have the potential of 5th-level mutants. In a short period of time, it is still relatively difficult for Ruiwen to simulate their superpowers. Han Xiaoqing's suggestion to Ruiwen is to proceed step by step, and at the same time pay attention to the trade-offs. Don't imitate everyone's ability, otherwise the loss outweighs the gain. Since having Darwin's survival of the fittest and evolution abilities, Ruiwen's upper limit has increased a lot. Take your time, as your abilities become more and more perfect, Ruiwen's future achievements will definitely be above the apocalypse. Among the mutants, it is estimated that only the Scarlet Witch and the Phoenix Girl can suppress her. While thoughts were surging, Han Xiaoqing and others had already dived into the deep sea area. I don't know if Han Xiaoqing's mouth is open, but Atlantis is indeed in chaos at this time. A group of grinning and ferocious fish beasts are attacking the Empire of Atlantis. They are relatively large in size, basically 10 meters away, more ferocious than sharks, bloodthirsty, and numerous. The herd of fish and beasts came from the Earth's inner world, and no one knew their names. Once they appeared, they caused huge losses to the Atlantis Empire. Those Atlanteans who went out to hunt were almost wiped out by a herd of fish. Fortunately, the protective barrier of Atlantis Royal City was not broken by these fish and beasts, otherwise the consequences would be disastrous. The Atlanteans counterattacked with various high-pressure water cannons and energy weapons, and temporarily blocked the attack of the fish and beasts, which is indeed not a long-term solution. They were besieged in the city by swarms of fish and beasts. Once the protective shield was broken or the energy was interrupted, it would be a disaster. There are more dangers in the deep sea than on land. From ancient times to the present, Atlantis has often been attacked by giant monsters in the deep sea, and monsters that occasionally ran out from the inner world of the Earth. It is not easy to continue to this day. Why hasn't your Lord come back yet? At this time. Hold on, Lord Patronus will definitely come to save us. It's hard to say. Last time the king offended Lord Patronus, maybe these fish and beasts are the punishments Lord Patronus gave us. I said earlier that Namor is unreliable as an idiot. If Imogen is here, maybe we can turn the tide. You mean Han Xiaoqing? He also has a trident and royal blood. If the patron saint is willing to support him, I can accept him instead of Namor. Stop thinking about it, hold it up. Hold it up. In the face of tens of thousands of fish and beast attacks, various voices appeared in Atlantis. Some hoped that Namor would return and lead them through the difficulties. Some hope that Godzilla will appear to protect Atlantis. There are also some complaints about Namor. There are as many people as there are right and wrong, and no one can be perfect. Many people were dissatisfied with Namor when he was in power, and he suppressed those reactionary people only by relying on his powerful strength. Some time ago, Han Xiaoqing's arrival left an impression on many Atlanteans. Although the king lost the challenge, Godzilla was behind him, which moved some people who were dissatisfied with Namor. Now that Namor has gone out and has not returned, and the fish and beasts are rampant again, the voice of dissatisfaction in Atlantis is gradually rising. Outside the protective cover, countless fish and beasts crazily impacted on the protective cover, resulting in rapid energy consumption, and the situation is in danger. Fortunately, it has been in business for many years, and Atlantis is also not easy to mess with. All kinds of energy weapons are output crazily. Various modified sea beasts were also thrown into the battlefield, relieving part of the pressure. However, facing the vicious fish and beasts that seemed to emerge endlessly, every Atlantean felt hopeless. The fish beast looks like a fish, but has beast-like limbs, rough skin and thick flesh, and moves quickly. It is difficult for ordinary Atlantean warriors to kill them without the help of energy weapons. And the minions of fish and beasts are very sharp. Even if it is a modified new type of sea ship, or some low-level sea beasts, they will be easily torn into pieces. Only a small number of high-level sea beasts can compete with the modified sea beasts on the side of Atlantis. The situation on the battlefield was extremely tragic. A large area of seawater was dyed red, and various organs and internal organs were floating in the seawater, which was extremely turbid, like a Shira field. When Han Xiaoqing and others were diving, they found a fish beast upstream. Originally, Han Xiaoqing wanted to use telepathy to control fish and beasts as temporary mounts, but he never thought that telepathy would not work on fish and beasts. Neptune's telepathy can control marine life and hear the voice of the other party, but it is not effective for all creatures. In DC Comics, Neptune once had a dark history of being bitten off by a piranha. These ferocious and weird-looking fish beasts have low brain capacity, and they are completely a group of foodies. They eat each other without external food, and ordinary people really can't afford to mess with them. Mera swung the trident, and a blast of energy bullets shot out, killing the fish and beast, and the blood scattered. As if a hornet's nest had been barreled, in an instant, pairs of blood-red dead fish eyes in the sea below came into sight, and then a large group of fish and beasts quickly swam towards Han Xiaoqing and the others. "Get behind me," Han Xiaoqing shouted, protected the three of them with a gravity stance, and then decisively gathered the energy on his hands. I saw Han Xiaoqing put on the posture of Kamepai Qigong, gathering the atomic energy in the palm of his hand, and the surging energy, with the push of Han Xiaoqing's hands, turned into a destruction beam as thick as a bucket. The blow was earth-shattering. The intense heat and unparalleled impact were no less than the atomic breath of Brother Boss, which directly vaporized the fish and beasts along the way, and even the surrounding sea water boiled for it. Fortunately, Han Xiaoqing added protective shields to Ruiwen, Darwin, and Mera in advance, otherwise they would have to be steamed. Han Xiaoqing's attack was extremely powerful, and the siphon effect attached to the light beam swept in all the fish and beasts gathered around and turned them into ashes. The atomic beam cut through a distance of thousands of meters and bombarded the seabed, causing the seabed to vibrate. Roar! Accompanied by a roar, the leader of the fish and beast clan rushed out from the bottom of the sea in a rage. Not to mention, this fish beast is very big, over 40 meters long, with extremely sharp teeth. It looks like a ruthless character like Deng's fish, and the beast claws on its side are stronger and more powerful. If there is no tomahawk, it is estimated that Liangzi may not be able to win if he meets him. However, the leader of the fish beast is obviously not a giant monster, at best it is an elite monster like a skeleton lizard. Be careful, I'll fix them. After pushing Mera and the others a certain distance, Han Xiaoqing quickly rushed to the leader of the fish beast, easily pierced the thick fish scales with a fork, and then leaned over and reached out to touch its skin. The red of all beings under the induction, Han Xiaoqing obtained the memory of fish and beasts. Fish and beasts did live in the Earth core world before, and belonged to amphibious creatures. Due to environmental reasons, and there were many titan beasts in the Earth core world, the fish and beast family could not develop and grow. Until they inadvertently passed through the anti-gravity channel and came to the bottom of the sea. With the loss of natural enemies and the strong reproductive ability of fish and beasts, the group has grown rapidly and has a tendency to spread. Once fish and beasts swim to other sea areas, the troubles they will bring will definitely be overwhelming. The invasion of species is a very serious matter, especially monsters like fish and beasts. If the fish and beasts are not controlled, when the fish and beasts flood the major sea areas, not only the oceans but even land creatures will suffer. After thinking for a while, Han Xiaoqing stirred the trident, causing the leader of the fish and beasts to scream and ask for help from other fish and beasts. Stimulated by the pain, the fish and beast leader howled loudly and swayed wildly, but unfortunately, he was firmly attracted by gravity and could not break free at all. Han Xiaoqing stepped on top of the fish and beast. Ding! The host is currently located on top of the head of the ancient fish and beast, and meets the check-in conditions. Do you want to check in? Hearing the system prompt, Han Xiaoqing said silently, punch in. Punching in, counting down for 10 seconds, 10, 9, 8. While Han Xiaoqing stepped on the head of the fish and beast leader to check in, he was summoned by the fish and beast leader. Whether it was the fish beasts besieging Atlantis or the fish beasts spreading outward, they all swarmed in the direction of Han Xiaoqing and their leaders immediately. These monsters are gone. Great, finally saved. There's something wrong with the situation. Do you want to send someone out to have a look? In Atlantis, everyone was relieved to see the fish and beasts retreating, and they rushed to wonder at the same time. What is it that makes these vicious fish and beasts evacuate? The water in the outside world was too turbid, even the Atlanteans couldn't see too far with the naked eye, they could only observe through instruments, and those terrifying fish and beasts all gathered in the same direction. Crack, crack, crack. In the deep sea area, the group of fish and beasts bit at Han Xiaoqing crazily. The strong bite force caused sparks to be generated in the water when the teeth collided, which shows how amazing the bite force is. For ordinary people, it is estimated that they will be torn to pieces by this group of vicious fish monsters in minutes. It's a pity that they met Han Xiaoqing. For Han Xiaoqing, the group of fish and beasts is a group of younger brothers. When the gravity field is turned on, all the gathered fish and beasts are kept out, and they can't even touch his clothes. 3, 2, 1, successful check-in. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Mitsuo Isofu from Naruto. Sanwei Isofu. It is one of the 9 chakras separated from the body of the 10 tails by Itsuki Yuya, the sage of the 6 paths in ancient times. It is a turtle covered with thorns all over its body and with 3 tails. Do you want to receive it? 10 seconds passed quickly, and Han Xiaoqing saw the check-in reward. I didn't expect there to be a tailed beast. The rewards are really all-encompassing. I just don't know how the 3-tailed rock is compared to the giant titan. Han Xiaoqing remembered that the tailed beast jade of the tailed beast in Hokage could blow away mountains, and its power was comparable to that of a missile. And the size is quite large. Sanwei Isofu is almost 50 meters high. Although the size is not as big as that of an adult titan, it is still much taller than today's pretty boys. After a little thought, Han Xiaoqing didn't summon Sanwei Jifu. As time went by, more and more fish and beasts gathered around, and the dark area made the already dark deep sea area full of depression. Around Han Xiaoqing's gravitational stand, there are dense blood-red eyes. The scene is more horrifying than a ghost movie, and those who are less timid may faint on the spot. Almost. After sensing and confirming that all the fish and beasts have gathered here, Han Xiaoqing stopped delaying, swung the trident, and used the 7th form of Overlord Halberd technique to swallow the sky and destroy the earth. The horizontal halberd sweeps all directions, and the white thunder pierces the sky. In the blink of an eye, 8 thick thunderbolts shot out from the trident in Han Xiaoqing's hand, penetrating through the layers of blockades of fish and beasts, forming a huge rice character in the deep sea. Within a range of 10 kilometers, the destructive lightning energy was not dispersed by the sea water, nor did it leak out at all. The electric light gathered from the inside out, spread and linked at the edges of 8 points, and finally formed a huge light ball. Envelop all the fish and beasts in it. For a moment, the power of thunder pierced through the darkness of the deep sea, emitting a dazzling light. Han Xiaoqing teleported to the outside of the thunderball, pointed the trident in his hand, and the original red-white light ball suddenly turned black, like a black hole, suddenly releasing energy that would destroy heaven and earth, and the fish and beasts inside it was immediately decomposed into atomic states by the destructive energy, and even the seawater inside evaporated completely in an instant, leaving a huge vacuum area. The sphere of light is fleeting, and in the vacuum area, water vapor is permeated, and nothing exists. Immediately afterwards, the sea water began to flow backwards, filling the gaps, causing the sea to turn into a turbulent sea. Mela, Darwin, and Ruiwen watched this scene from afar, with different thoughts. I didn't expect his strength to reach such a level. This should be considered an Omega class. Originally, Ruiwen thought that she was making rapid progress and could catch up with Han Xiaoqing's footsteps, but now it seems that the distance between them has not been shortened, but has become farther and farther. In fact, what Ruiwen and the others saw was only the tip of the iceberg of Han Xiaoqing. And Omega-level mutants are not as simple as Ruiwen thought. True Omega-level mutants are comparable in strength to Heavenly Father-level powerhouses, and very few top-notch Omega-level mutants can even reach the multiverse level. To a certain extent, even if they are both Omega-level mutants, there is still a huge gap. Han Xiaoqing stood on the cusp of the storm, but was as stable as before. After solving the herd of fish and beasts, he joined Mera and the others and continued to advance towards Atlantis. As for Sanwei Isofu, it's not too late to call when you have time. Skull Island. In the shallow water area of the calm lakeside in the west, ripples suddenly appeared, followed by bursts of muddy water, and then a huge vortex appeared, causing the water level to drop rapidly. The lone reef bull demon who was in the lake sensed something was wrong and planned to leave, but a sudden change occurred. Wow! Accompanied by a sudden sound of water breaking, a huge skeleton lizard rushed out of the water-filled cave, and rushed towards the lone reef bull demon not far away. In the huge mouth of the skeleton lizard, there are 2 rows of sharp teeth that are as sharp as knives, which can easily penetrate into the flesh and blood of the lone reef bull demon. Moo! The lone reef bull demon screamed in pain and struggled in the water. At this moment, 3 more skeleton lizards broke out of the water, biting the lone reef bull demon frantically. Accompanied by the tearing sound of stabbing, the flesh and blood of the lone reef bull demon was constantly bitten off by the 4 skeleton lizards. Scarlet blood quickly spread in the lake. However, this killing feast is just the beginning. After the 4 skeleton lizards killed the lone reef bull demon, they only took a few bites before starting to focus on the other prey around them. They are like hungry ghosts crawling out of hell, devouring all creatures they see. Boom boom boom. Just as the 4 skeleton lizards were killing, the ground trembled violently. Liangzi dragged his tomahawk, and came running at a fast pace, with a turbulent momentum that made the mountains and forests tremble. The 4 skeleton lizards sensed the coercion from Liangzi, perhaps because they knew they were invincible, they immediately scattered and fled. But Liangzi obviously has no intention of letting them go. He wants to settle the old and new grudges once and for all. I saw Liangzi's huge palm tightly holding the handle of the axe, swung it up and slashed at a skeleton lizard. The skeleton lizard was more than 30 meters long, but it had no strength to fight back, and was chopped on the back by Liangzi with an axe. Under the terrifying force, the skeleton lizard's spine broke and was chopped into 2 sections by the battle axe. Although the skeleton lizard is a top predator, it even almost led to the extinction of the King Kong family. But these half-sized skeleton lizards looked extremely vulnerable to the pretty boy with the battle axe. Ho ho ho! After finishing off a skeleton lizard, Liangzi looked up to the sky and screamed. But the other 3 skeleton lizards did not run far, turned a small turn, 2 skeleton lizards flanked left and right, and the other skeleton lizard went around behind and attacked. The strength of the skeleton lizard lies not in the individual, but in fighting with the group. It can fight in groups, never alone. Attacked from 2 sides, sneak attack from behind, Liangzi was attacked from 3 sides, one sideways grabbed the neck of the skeleton lizard on the left, and rammed towards the skeleton lizard on the right. With a sound of dwang, the heads of the 2 skeleton lizards collided violently, cracks appeared in the bony skulls, and the brain was buzzing, and at the same time fell into a short-term absent-minded state. At this moment, the skeleton lizard that was attacking from behind opened its huge mouth, jumped with a run up, and bit the back of Liangzi's neck. Shua, Shua. At this moment, two 10-meter-long superalloy spears flew down from the air in a perfect arc, interlaced and pierced between the two ribs of the skeleton lizard, and pierced out from the lower abdomen, killing the skeleton lizard to death, nailed to the ground. It was Magneto Eric who shot. With no worries, Liangzi concentrates on dealing with the two skeleton lizards beside him. I saw Liangzi locked his throat with one hand, and lifted the skeleton lizard in his hand. The other skeleton lizard shook his head and wanted to get up. Liangzi raised his leg and stepped on it hard, trampling the skull lizard's head into the soil. Some brains splashed out. The skeleton lizard in his hand was still struggling. Liangzi swung the tomahawk, from bottom to top. He lifted it into the skeleton lizard's stomach, disemboweled it, and threw it on the ground. Roar! After finishing off the skeleton lizard that crawled out, Liangzi planted the battle axe on the ground, beating his chest with both hands, like the roar of a war drum, and let out a deafening roar from his mouth. It's like announcing to all creatures that he will always be the most beautiful boy on Skull Island. Eric, be careful, there are many skeleton lizards underground, and they are climbing up. Charles's voice came to Eric's and Pretty Boy's minds at the same time. Let them come. Eric, who didn't wear a helmet, flew into the air through the magnetic field, looking down at the earth from a high position. Pretty Boy, holding a battle axe, quietly approached the direction Charles pointed out, raised the battle axe, and waited for the skeleton lizards to show their heads. Charles can actually control giant beasts like skeleton lizards, but he cannot directly control two skeleton lizards to kill each other. Because when he controls the target, his mental power establishes a link with the target, and he can empathize with him. In other words, if the person controlled by Charles is injured, Charles will feel the same pain. This kind of injury will not affect Charles's body, but the mental devastation will still make Charles very uncomfortable. So Charles is only acting as a temporary investigator, responsible for pointing out the location of the skeleton lizard, and passing the information to the minds of Pretty Boy and Eric. Liangzi lay in ambush on the ground, waiting for the skeleton lizard to throw himself into the trap. Eric controls dozens of superalloy spears, ready to go. If a worker wants to do a good job, he must first sharpen his tools. After coming to Skull Island, Eric knew that he would face many huge monsters, so Eric prepared these spears for emergencies. The skeleton lizards in the ground didn't know the situation on the surface. Because of the barrier of the soil, they heard the roar of the Pretty Boy before, but they didn't smell the smell of the Pretty Boy. Soon, the first skeleton lizard broke through the soil, revealing its ferocious head. It was Pretty Boy's axe that greeted it. With a click, the tomahawk chopped into the skull lizard's head, and the brains and bones splashed, causing the skeleton lizard to die on the spot. Liangzi pulled out the corpse of the skeleton lizard, and yelled provocatively at the hole below, which probably meant, "Come here." Ho 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 ho. The skeleton lizard responded with a roar, which probably meant, "Don't run if you have the guts." Having been dormant for many years, the skeleton lizard clan is thriving, unlike the Pretty Boy who is alone and widowed. Hearing Liangzi's provocation, they swarmed out immediately, intending to completely eliminate the last King Kong and dominate Skull Island. After Liangzi finished yelling, he ran away for a certain distance, and then saw 7 or 8 holes around him. These skeleton lizards are very cunning. If the Pretty Boy doesn't run away in time, when these skeleton lizards crawl out of other holes, they can instantly form a siege. A total of 13 skeleton lizards climbed out of the ground, and the individuals were larger than the previous skeleton lizards. The largest skeleton lizard was nearly 50 meters tall and more than 70 meters long, compared to the current Pretty Boy. It was much bigger, and it was one of the culprits who killed Liangzi's parents in the first place. Roar! Liangzi obviously recognized his enemy, his eyes were full of anger, and he let out a roar. At the same time, Artoria, Charles and others also rushed over. I'm going to help them. Just as the angel Salvador was about to take off, he was stopped by Charles. Don't go, there are many Icarus wings nearby, your defense is insufficient, flying into the air is dangerous, leave it to the red tanks and the Ravagers. The red tank responded lightly and stepped forward. The red tank has rough skin and thick flesh, and is extremely powerful. It may be a little difficult to beat an adult titan, but it is absolutely no problem to kill a skeleton lizard. Even if it is bitten by a skeleton lizard, it cannot kill him. Finally I can show my talents. Alex the Devastator stepped forward in a black suit to assist. The Angel Salvador, the Siren Sean and the Beast Hank stayed by Eric's side. Arturia held the sword of vowed victory, and she didn't rush to make a move, because she thought that Eric and others had the ability to solve the trouble. The battle started amidst the roar of the skeleton lizards. Although the handsome boy was brave, he was still a bit powerless to face the 13 skeleton lizards alone. Therefore, he planned to use the kite-flying tactic to stretch the battle line and defeat them one by one. Eric doesn't have so many scruples. He flies in the air and is protected by a magnetic field. He doesn't have to worry about being attacked by the flying wings of Icarus. The skeleton lizard can't jump so high, so he can confidently output boldly. Whoosh whoosh. Under Eric's control, a superalloy spear flew down like an arrow from the string. In an instant, 3 skeleton lizards were nailed to the ground. Roar. At this time, the skeleton lizard noticed the little dot in the sky, but it was helpless. Their jumping ability is amazing, but they can't fly after all. Eric is located at a height of 500 meters and has the air superiority. They have to be beaten. Facing Eric's attack, the skeleton lizard dodged left and right, but Eric could correct the angle of attack, almost without fail. In the blink of an eye, 2 more skeleton lizards were nailed to the ground, howling in despair. The other skeleton lizards were all frightened. Liangzi saw the timing, and flew the battle axe in his hand, knocking down an approaching skeleton lizard. Before the axe was pulled out, another skeleton lizard had already pounced. Just as it opened its bloody mouth, it was pierced by Alex's laser beam, blasting a big hole in the back of its head. In a short time, 7 of the 13 skeleton lizards died. Although the skeleton lizard is ugly, its IQ is not low. Seeing that the situation is not good, it immediately wants to drill into a hole in the ground, intends to sneak into the underground world, and wait for the opportunity. Want to run. Eric was willing to let these ferocious monsters go, and controlled the super alloy spear to quickly fly into those caves, inserting them in a criss-cross pattern on the ground, with the spears pointing upwards. Anyone who dared to jump in would be seeking his own death. Roar. Seeing that the escape route was blocked, it must be too late to dig a hole on the spot. The largest skeleton lizard roared again and again, glanced at Charles and the others, and issued an attack command to the remaining skeleton lizards, intending to fight to the death. At this time, the red tank ran a certain distance. Although the speed was not bad, it was not very ideal. Eric had a flash of inspiration and seemed to have an idea. He flew down and came to the rear of the red tank. "Let me help you." "What?" The red tank was a little puzzled, and then felt a strong electromagnetic field around him, forming a special kind of pipeline, and he himself flew up uncontrollably. "Eric, don't mess around." Charles seemed to realize what Eric was going to do, and shouted loudly. Seeing this, Hank the Beast frowned slightly. Isn't he trying to use the red tank as a shell? It's too messy. With excited eyes, Eric said with a smile, "It must be very exciting, are you ready?" Standing behind the red tank, Eric used the electromagnetic field to form a huge circular channel, using the red tank as a shell, adjusted the direction and height, and aimed at the rushing skeleton lizard group. This is a new combination skill that Eric just thought of, and it is theoretically feasible. Cyterax magic makes the red tank's power inexhaustible and inexhaustible. It can make its own body almost indestructible. Its collision ability has destroyed many buildings many times. It can even resist Thor's hammer and King Kong. The wolf's adamantium alloy steel claws. Once running, you can accumulate powerful kinetic energy to achieve an invincible effect. The faster the speed, the greater the power. But the running speed of the red tank is not satisfactory, so its power is relatively limited. So Eric decided to help him. The red tank is wearing super strong alloy armor. Eric uses the electromagnetic field to generate power, and puts the red tank into the circular channel of the electromagnetic field to act as a shell, and uses the electromagnetic force to greatly increase the speed of the red tank. Hey, what are you doing? Red Tank was a little confused. He was a scumbag, he didn't understand what Eric was doing at all, but he just had a bad premonition. Don't worry about it, just concentrate on accumulating kinetic energy. Under Eric's control, the circular channel of the electromagnetic field quickly accumulates energy. The relationship between Charles and Red Tank is not very good, but he still couldn't help worrying. "Eric, Kane will be in danger if you do this." "Don't worry, He has an immortal body, he can't die, the tank flies bravely, if something happens, he will carry it on his own, and let you go. After charging, Eric pushed forward, and the red tank flew out at a high speed like a fired shell. The lightning and red evil spirit surged, sparks and lightning all the way, reaching an astonishing 4 times the speed of sound. The power is terrifying. With a swish, the red tank pierced through the bodies of the 3 skeleton lizards, and the strong wind howled past by, causing a huge ditch to be plowed out of the ground below. The red tank's vision was blurred, and he simply closed his eyes, accumulating strong kinetic energy. The helmet above his head turned crimson red due to the friction with the air, but the red tank didn't feel anything unusual. Brave tank, not afraid of difficulties, fly. Wow. The red streamer whizzed past, smashing into all obstacles along the way. It was really overwhelming, nothing could stop it. Between lightning and flint, the red tank brought up a cloud of blood mist wreckage, and finally smashed the body of the largest skeleton lizard through a huge blood hole. The moment the blood spattered, the red tank soared into the sky, crashing into a big mountain behind, and then slowed down, then flew a certain distance, and under Eric's control, flew upwards, bringing the accumulated kinetic energy to the ground. After consumption, it slowly landed. The red tank did not suffer any injuries, but he was a little dizzy and wanted to vomit. Look, it's all right. Eric laughed. Ha! Looking at the destroyed environment, Liang's eye was a little upset. He snorted coldly, scanned the battlefield, and found that there was a skeleton lizard that survived by chance. He picked up the axe and took it away. Eric, seeing that Charles was going to preach again, Eric nodded. Okay, I know what you want to say. The physique of the red tank can ensure that he will not die. This experiment itself is not dangerous. Mutants have various abilities in the same way. Some abilities are not very powerful when used alone, but they can be used together, but there will be unexpected effects. I know exactly what I am doing. He and Charles are sympathetic to each other, and both are fighting for the future of mutants. But I just don't like Charles's long-winded and timid character. There has always been a conflict between the 2 ideas. Arturia stood up. Okay, let's go here today, seal the hole, so that other monsters will not crawl out. As soon as I said this, a group of Icarus wings flew over. Their goal is the corpse of the skeleton lizard. As for Eric and others, if they have the opportunity, they would be happy to add food. Although the Icarus wing is not big, it is powerful. A single Icarus wing can catch an adult in the air, and then be eaten by his companions. In addition to the red tank with rough skin and thick flesh, even Eric must be careful, otherwise he might be pierced by the sudden wings of Icarus. Let me do it, you cover your ears. The sea monster Sean volunteered, shouted to the sky, and drove away the group of Icarus wings with a large-scale ultrasonic wave. But the group of Icarus wings did not fly far away, they were still hovering in the air, apparently very obsessed with food. Eric waved his hand, inserted it into the ground, and the spears around the hole flew up, as if he wanted to create a metal storm to deal with these annoying predators. Eric, forget it, they're just for food, it's not good to interfere with the ecology too much. Charles said. Eric said coldly, we are also food in their eyes. Roar. Just when the 2 were about to discuss in depth, a huge roar came from the ground. Charles felt a violent and evil revival of thoughts, and his expression changed immediately. No, it's Kamazotz. Kamazotz is a giant bad monster. The ancient legend about Kamazozu is recorded in the strokes of the Iway people that have been handed down for thousands of years. It is said that in the depths of the earth, there lives a terrifying monster. It is the king of the abyss who controls the eternal night, and is also the eternal opponent of the sun. One day, darkness and storms will come and swallow the whole world. Even King Kong, the patron saint of the island, couldn't stop this from happening. Accompanied by Kamazoz's roar, the sky that was originally clear turned overcast in a blink of an eye, giving people the feeling that dark clouds are overwhelming the city. As the bat god in Mayan mythology, Kamazotz is bloodthirsty and brutal, symbolizing night and death, and belongs to the destroyer among the titanic beasts. Because of his special living habits, Kamazotz doesn't like the sun, so every time before he appears, he will control the storm to block the sun. Charles tried to control Kamazos, but Kamazos's life force field was very strong, far from being comparable to that of a skeleton lizard. Unless he used the brainwave enhancement room, he could not control it at all. The storm enveloped the sky, which was the precursor to the appearance of Kamazotz. Not to mention how destructive Kamazotz is, the controlled storm alone is enough to cause death crisis to many creatures. Charles greeted everyone immediately. Everyone enter the base quickly, the storm is coming. He refers to everyone, including the Yus. Facing the attack of the storm, the strongholds of the Iway tribe are hard to resist. Everyone headed towards the base, even Liangzi followed. Quack quack, moo moo, roar. The storm gradually formed, and the animals on Skull Island felt the crisis, and they were in chaos. In the chaos, dark clouds completely enveloped the sky, and violent wind and rain roared. The Away tribe shivered and looked at the black torrent in the sky. Ho 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 ho. After a while of shaking, a huge black bat broke through the ground and let out a piercing scream. The sound waves visible to the naked eye blew away the falling rain, and the lightning fell in the storm, piercing the darkness, allowing the terrifying bat monster to come into everyone's eyes. As the sound waves spread, many equipment and glass in the base were destroyed in the terrifying sound waves. Everyone covered their ears, feeling dizzy. Some of the weak Yus also had nosebleeds. Squeak. And around Kamazotz, a group of terrifying bat monsters circled around Kamazotz. Kamazotz is a titan that existed in ancient times. It is more than 50 meters tall and has a wingspan of more than 120 meters. It is equivalent to the length of 2 Boeing 77s. It likes to feed on the blood of other titans. It looks like a bat. There is a pair of horns on the head, to be precise, it is 1.5. A long time ago, Kamazos and the ancient King Kong competed for the supremacy of Skull Island. The result was obvious. Kamazotz was almost beaten to death by the ancient King Kong, and he hid in the ground to sleep in desperation. In terms of strength, Kamazotz is indeed no match for the ancient King Kong, but how can he survive? Go up to now, in the long years, survive the ancient King Kong to death. Now there are only pretty boys left in the King Kong clan, who haven't grown up yet, so it's a good time to take revenge. The father's debt was repaid by the son, and the debt of the ancient King Kong was counted on Liangzi, the great-grandson, so there was nothing wrong with it. Roar. The pretty guy was super brave. Standing outside the base, he picked up a stone and threw it at Kamazotz. However, it is underdeveloped, and there is a big gap between the two when facing an adult titan. Being hit by a stone, Kamazos looked at Liangzi contemptuously, and then spread his wings and flew over. Pretty boy's blood is also the best food for Kamazotz. Not to be outdone, Liang Zai swung his tomahawk and rushed over like a berserker. But the size disparity, coupled with the air-to-ground battle, made Liangzi very passive. Roar. Kamazotz flew high into the sky and emitted a deafening ultrasonic wave. The huge sound wave was so thorough that Liangzi had a splitting headache and was unable to fight back. Charles was shocked. No, pretty boy is not his opponent, there is danger. Without saying a word, Eric manipulated dozens of superalloy spears and shot towards Kamazotz. At this time, Kamazos had just grabbed the pretty boy with his claws, and wanted to take him to the sky and throw it on the earth, but when he dived halfway, he found the flying spear and immediately waved his huge wings and shot a part of it. The spear flew away. But there were still more than a dozen spears piercing him. So hard. Feeling the resistance from the spear, Eric looked solemn. The reason why a giant titan is that, in addition to its powerful destructive power and huge size, its defense is also second to none. The skin of most giant titans can resist missiles. Some titans can even take nuclear bombs without injury. I'll try. Alex stood up and fired at full power. A thick laser beam shot out from his chest, but this laser beam, which was enough to penetrate steel, still failed to break through the defense, and instead angered Kamazotz. Roar. Kamazos sent out ultrasonic waves in the direction of the base. If the ultrasonic waves of this frequency were hit head-on, ordinary people would not be able to bear them at all. Avalon. At the critical moment, Arturia stood up and released Avalon in time. The scabbard formed an absolute defensive barrier, isolating the ultrasonic attack. Eric looked at the red tank beside him. What do you see me doing? Red tank glared at Eric with eyes as big as brass bells. Ahem. Charles coughed twice. Kane, we need your strength. The red tank looked at Charles angrily. That's not what you said just now. You were really a fool. To be honest, are you afraid that I will live to divide your property? How can you think like this? I never care about these extraneous things. Charles sighed. Beast Hank shouted. Now is not the time to talk about this, he is here. I saw Kamazos flying down, grabbing Avalon's defensive barrier with huge and sharp claws. However, Avalon is an enchantment treasure. The enchantment formed after the release of the real name can ignore all magic and physical attacks. In theory, being in the enchantment is equivalent to being in another world, unless it has the power to destroy the world, otherwise it is impossible to break the defense. Godzilla's atomic breath may be able to. After all, the brother with full firepower can directly penetrate the center of the earth. Kamazotz can only stare blankly. Roar, good opportunity. When Kamazotz was climbing on the barrier, Pretty Boy rushed from behind, leaping for life. The lightning in the sky strikes the battle axe in Liang Zai's hand, but Liang Zai is not injured by it. Instead, the battle axe absorbs the energy of the lightning, and the blade of the axe turns blue, which is more lethal. Holding an electric battle axe, the handsome boy is like a god descending from the earth. He slashed at Kamazotz's back with an axe. The blade of the axe broke through Kamazotz's skin and injured his internal organs. The scarlet blood was like a fountain. The same wound gushed out, and a large rain of blood was sprinkled. Roar! Kamazotz, who was severely injured, let out a piercing and miserable scream, his wings shook, and he flew high into the sky, taking the pretty boy with him. Little boy, let go. Charles' telepathy. No, my axe. Liang Zai held on to the tomahawk firmly and refused to let go, and was soon led by Kamazos to a distance of more than 100 meters. Kamazotz's vitality is strong. Although he was severely injured, he will not die for a while. If he can absorb the blood of the Titan in time, he can also speed up the recovery of his injuries. This is Kamazos' natural ability. In fact, every adult Titan has unique innate abilities, such as Godzilla's atomic breath, Ratone's firestorm, Death Swarm's infinite split, and so on. Pretty Boy is still a child who hasn't grown up, and his parents have degenerated, so he can't be regarded as a real Titan. It was Liangzi who had the phenomenon of returning to his ancestors, and had the hope of being promoted to Titan again. In midair, Liangzi firmly grasped the battle axe with one hand, and Kamazotz's back with the other hand, trying to climb up. At this moment, the surrounding bad monsters swarmed and began to attack Liangzi. They were about the same size as the frightened vultures, with sharp teeth and sharp mouths. After they flew onto Liangzi's body, they opened their mouths hoarsely. Today's Liangzi is still young, and his defense is relatively weak. He was bitten and bruised all over his body, and the bloody bad monster became more and more crazy, screaming and thumping. Liang Zai was overwhelmed by the disturbance and waved his hand to drive him away, but because he couldn't stand firmly, he fell from a place of nearly 200 meters. Kamazotz suddenly threw out his spiked tail, wrapped it around Liangzi's thigh, and bent down, trying to suck Liangzi's blood. The distance between the two behemoths was too close, and it was difficult for Arturia below to use the Sword of Vowed Victory to attack. In the end, it was Eric who took the shot and let the red tank act as a cannonball again. Under Eric's control, the red tank was suspended in midair, with its body straight and ready to go. A ring-shaped pipe made by an electromagnetic field appeared around the red tank again, and ordinary people couldn't see it, but Eric could clearly feel the change of the magnetic field. After the energy storage was completed, under Eric's push, the red tank flew into the sky like an angry bird, climbing at an astonishing speed. During the flight, Eric adjusted the flight angle of the red tank to ensure an effective strike against Kamazotz while avoiding injury to the pretty boy. Kamazot's movements are very fast. Even if he catches the handsome boy, his flying speed reaches Mach 0.5. However, compared with the red tank transformed into an electromagnetic gun, this speed is still much inferior, and he was caught up in a blink of an eye. The red energy accumulated on the red tank and the powerful electromagnetic impact hit Kamazotz's head all at once. Catch! The sound of bone breaking resounded throughout the world, and the red tank pierced through Kamazotz's head in the blink of an eye, and the accompanying airflow further expanded the wound, causing Kamazotz's head to explode on the spot. It was because Kamazotz had strong vitality, but he didn't have the ability to regenerate Ghidorah's head. His head exploded and he was completely dead. The headless body fell from the sky. Liang Zai seized the opportunity decisively and pulled Kamazotz under his body as a pad. Amidst the loud bang, Liang Zai and Kamazotz landed on the ground shook and dust flew up. At that time, the altitude had already reached 500 meters. Even though Kamazotz was at the bottom, Liangzi still suffered some shocks, but fortunately it was not serious. On the contrary, Kamazuzi seemed to have been whipped to death, a large part of his body was slumped, blood was sprayed high, and he looked like he was crying from death. Roar! Liang Zai casually slapped a bat monster that was biting him to death, then raised his head to the sky and screamed. It seemed that Liangzi's arrogance was exposed, and the bat monsters around him didn't dare to approach him for a while. Pretty Boy pulled out the battle axe stuck in Kamazotz's back, dragged Kamazotz's body to the cave, and threw Kamazotz down. Kamazuzi is so ugly that the Pretty Boy is afraid of getting sick from eating it. Bring Liangzi back away. Those bat monsters circled around, and immediately flew into the cave with a whimper. It's not that life and death go hand in hand, the ancestors are dead, they just want to eat. It's really a harmonious scene where the father resigns and the son laughs. After the bats and monsters flew into the cave, Artoria ran to the cave quickly with a long sword in hand, and shot Excalibur to the bottom. Under the bombardment of the Oath light cannon, Kamazotz and the bat monster were all blown up, and the anti-gravity channel collapsed with the ground shaking. Artoria looked at everyone. Is everyone okay? Fine. It's all right, it's just that the equipment is damaged. Everyone survived the crisis without any risk, the dark clouds in the sky dissipated, and the sun shines on the earth again. After the storm, leave behind a gorgeous rainbow. Angel Salvador looked towards the sky. Where is the red tank? Siren Sean. It hasn't fallen yet. Eric waved his hand. It's okay, let the tank fly for a while. At this time, the red tank has already flown into the atmosphere, and if it flies down, it will become the first person to land on the moon in the 20th century. I have already expressed condolences to Eric 100 times. If it weren't for his immortal superpower, he would have been played to death by Eric. In the blink of an eye, 7 days passed, and Calm returned to Skull Island, and there were several new members. Underwater World. After a few days of visits, Han Xiaoqing officially became the king of Atlantis, and everyone in the world obeyed him. Wearing a crown on his head, wearing Zeus armor, and holding a trident, Han Xiaoqing's overall image now looks a bit like Poseidon in Saint Warrior. The difference is that his hair is black. Sitting on the high throne, Han Xiaoqing is surrounded by Mela and Rui Wen. Below is a group of little blue people dancing in the water, a scene of singing and dancing. As for Darwin, he was arranged by Han Xiaoqing to practice. When he returns from his studies, Han Xiaoqing will give him an official position so that he can be in charge of the army of Atlantis. Compared with land, life in the deep sea is easier to exercise Darwin's ability. There are several reasons why Han Xiaoqing was able to successfully become the new king of Atlantis. First, Han Xiaoqing took out Namor's head. Once Namor dies, the country cannot live without a king. Atlantis needs a strong leader to lead them forward and protect their safety. Second, Han Xiaoqing wiped out the fish and beasts, lifted the crisis in Atlantis, and won some people's hearts. Third, these Atlanteans mistakenly thought that Han Xiaoqing was a Mogi, who had the blood of the Atlantean royal family and belonged to the royal orthodoxy. The most important point is that Han Xiaoqing is backed by Godzilla, so he is strong enough. If the people of Atlantis want to live in peace, they have to cling to Han Xiaoqing's wings. Otherwise, Han Xiaoqing will be unhappy, even if he doesn't attack Atlantis. As long as Godzilla no longer guards Atlantis, these people will all be unlucky. Of course, Namor has been in power for many years and has cultivated many cronies. Some people choose to surrender, and some choose to sing the opposite. As a result, Han Xiaoqing continued to play music and dance, while those opponents had already fed the sharks. Compassion does not rule soldiers, and kindness does not rule power. With the passage of time, Han Xiaoqing's personality has also changed as his strength and status have improved. The more people experience, the harder it is for people to maintain the purity and kindness they once had. Today's Han Xiaoqing is gradually becoming stronger, and at the same time killing decisively. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.